Nepal government continues removal of encroached land along riverbanks in capital. Public supports government action. Nepal observes 2570th Buddha Jayanti today. Special prayers for peace held in Buddha's birthplace, Lumbini. Uboli festival being observed across Nepal. Kirat community marks key agrarian festival with Sakela dance and land worship. Nepal joins global observance of International Workers' Day. Government launches 5-year occupational safety and health program. U.S. calls for Lebanon-Israel talks as cross-border violence escalates. White House and Congress dispute over authority to continue strikes in Iran. And Nepal edges the UAE in a tense finish in ICC Men's Cricket League 2 clash. Wins by 6 runs via DLS method. Good evening, I'm Diksha Awasthi and this is NTV World Primetime News. We are coming to you live from Kathmandu at 1900 hours Nepal time. Elsewhere, it's 13:15 in London, 22:15 in Tokyo and just after midnight in Sydney. The details now. Kathmandu authorities have launched a major eviction drive along the Bagmati river banks in Balkhu and Bansighat, targeting 686 informal structures as part of a flood risk reduction campaign. According to the district administration office, 486 makeshift shelters in Balkhu and 200 in Bansighat are being cleared using bulldozers in coordination with local and federal agencies. Officials say the operation aims to prevent human and property losses during the monsoon season. The government has identified riverbank settlements as high-risk zones and plans to extend the clearance drive to upstream areas, including Sangkhamul, in the coming phases. Meanwhile, 50 displaced families have registered for resettlement support at Dasrat Stadium in Kathmandu, where authorities are collecting data for rehabilitation and temporary relocation arrangements. A total of 50 families from riverside settlements in Balkhu and Bansighat in Kathmandu have registered for government-led resettlement and rehabilitation support after leaving their informal homes. According to authorities, the families who say they lack housing, land and stable income were registered at a temporary office set up at Dasrat Stadium in Tripureswar on Friday. A joint team involving urban development officials and Kathmandu Metropolitan Police is collecting data from relocating them to designated holding centers for health checkups and counseling. The families will be moved to facilitate across Kathmandu Valley, including Thapakhel, Kharipati, Bode, Chobar and Kavre. Officials from the high-powered Committee for Integrated Development and Bagmati Civilization said the relocation process is part of ongoing efforts to manage riverside settlements in the capital. Nepal is observing the 2570th Buddha Jayanti today, honoring the life and teachings of Lord Siddhartha Gautam, who was born in Lumbini to King Suddhodana and Queen Mayadevi. The festival, marked on the full moon day of Baisak, is being celebrated across Nepal and in Buddhist communities worldwide with prayers for global peace, non-violence and harmony. Major Buddhist heritage sites including Lumbini, Swayambhu and Bodha, where monks and lamas held traditional rituals, chanting and special pujas. Siddhartha Gautam was born in Lumbini garden to King Suddhodana and Queen Mayadevi. Born in Lumbini, Lord Buddha renounced royal life at the age of 29 in search of enlightenment after witnessing human suffering, later becoming a global symbol of peace whose teachings continue to inspire millions. Buddha's birth, enlightenment and Mahaparinirvana, that is death, all occurred on the full moon day of Baishak. Thus, Buddhists worldwide, including those in Nepal, celebrate Buddha Jayanti with deep reverence and devotion. Nepal's Kirat community is observing the Ubhauli Parva today with rituals, dance and prayers for a good harvest marking one of its most important seasonal festivals dedicated to the worship of the earth deity, that is Bhumisthan. Celebrated mainly in Koshi province and Kathmandu, the festival falls on the full moon day of Baishak and coincides this year with Buddha Jayanti. Based on the Kirat religious text Mundum, Ubhauli marks the beginning of the farming season and is observed with traditional Sakela dance, communal gatherings and prayers for peace and prosperity. We're going for a short break here. More news coming up. Do stay with us. Welcome back. U.S. Special Envoy for South and Central Asia, Sergio Gore, met Nepal's Finance Minister Sonim Wagle and later held a courtesy meeting with Foreign Minister Shishir Khanal in Kathmandu during his visit to Nepal. The discussions focused on strengthening Nepal-U.S. relations with emphasis on expanding economic cooperation, trade and investment ties with the United States. According to officials, the envoy also engaged in broader talks on development partnership as part of his ongoing meetings with senior government leaders in Kathmandu. In Thawang village of Rolpa district in western Nepal, police have recovered the bodies of 20 people killed in jeep accident after the vehicle plunged around 800 meters down a steep cliff. Nepal police and armed police force personnel conducted an oversight rescue operation in difficult terrain, retrieving the bodies using ropes and stretchers. Some victims were carried manually while others were pulled from the gorge. Only one person survived the accident. Authorities said the bodies are being sent for post-mortem examination before being handed over to their respective districts. Labor Day is being marked across Nepal and the world today, commemorating the 137th International Workers' Day with calls for workers' rights, dignity and safe employment conducts. On the occasion, Labour, Employment and Social Security Minister Ramji Yadav announced a series of reforms, including a 5-year national occupational safety and health program aimed at ensuring safe and healthy workplaces for all workers. He introduced weekly Facebook Live interactions through labor attaches at Nepali embassies abroad to address the issues of migrant workers in real time. In another key announcement, workers enrolled in the contribution-based Social Security Fund will be eligible for housing loans at 6% interest, with the access to loans of up to Rs 15 million under existing rules. The government has also reaffirmed its focus on policy reforms, job creation and strengthening labor rights as Nepal continues to rely heavily on both domestic and migrant workers contributing to the national economy through remittances. May Day is being celebrated worldwide with rallies calling for higher wages, better working conditions and peace as workers face rising living costs and economic pressures linked to global energy price shocks. Demonstrators are taking place across major cities in Asia, Europe and the United States, with unions highlighting inflation, inequality and job insecurity. In South Korea, large crowds gathered at the capital Seoul's Gwanggwon Square under the banner of the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, with participants demanding stronger labor rights, recognition of non-regular workers and expanded collective bargaining protections. Organizers said about 10,000 people attended the rally, where protesters also called for improved conditions for platform and special category workers. In Sri Lanka, International Workers' Day was marked by 21 widespread rallies and political events across the country, led by the National People's Power Alliance, headed by President Anura Kumara. The movement held multiple rallies in major cities focusing on workers' rights, social justice and strengthening public sovereignty. Senior government and party leaders, including the President, Prime Minister and key ministers, participated in the event across different regions. The government of Nepal has released new guidelines on determining minimum support price, that is MSP, and minimum purchase price for agricultural crops 2082 BS. According to the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, the new framework will allow farmers to know the MSP of major crops such as paddy, maize, wheat and millet even before sowing, helping them plan production in advance. For crops like sugarcane, the government will conduct field surveys and data analysis before finalizing prices, while wheat prices will be set based on technical recommendations and review reports. Agriculture Minister Geeta Chaudhary said the guidelines are expected to reduce market risks for farmers, encourage better crop selection, and boost investment and productivity in the agriculture sector. International news coming up next after this short break. The United States Embassy in Lebanon has called for talks between Lebanese and Israeli leaders as Israeli strikes in southern Lebanon killed at least 24 people, according to the Health Ministry, despite an ongoing ceasefire. The violence marks a significant escalation since the truce announced on April 16, following talks in Washington. Hezbollah said it carried out retaliatory drone attacks targeting Israeli tanks in Bint Jbeil and a gathering of soldiers, while Israel Defense Forces reported that one of its soldiers was killed in a separate drone strikes. Israeli media also reported that another attack wounded 12 soldiers near the border. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun accused Israel of violating the ceasefire through continued strikes on civilian infrastructure. Conversely, Israel maintains these actions are responses to Hezbollah's own breaches, while Hezbollah claims it will only honor the truce if Israel does the same. Iran's Foreign Minister Sayed Abbas Araghchi has accused the United States of misleading the public over the economic cost of its military involvement in the conflict launched in February under Donald Trump alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In a post on X, Araghchi claimed the war has already cost Washington around $100 billion, which he said is 4 times higher than official figures reported by the Pentagon. He also argued that indirect costs for U.S. taxpayers are significantly higher, estimating the financial burden at roughly $500 per month per household, with expenses continuing to rise. Araghchi criticized U.S. support for Israel, saying it comes at the expense of American interest. Dozens of activists from Gaza-bound aid flotilla intercepted by Israeli forces in international waters off Crete disembarked on Friday under escort by Greek coast guards, according to reports. Around 175 activists, mostly European nationals, were transported by bus to the port of Athernikoukos after being removed from more than 20 boats. Although organizers said the flotilla included 211 participants, the flotilla, comprising more than 50 vessels, had departed in recent weeks from cities including Marseille, Barcelona, and Syracuse, aimed to deliver humanitarian aid and challenge Israel's blockade of Gaza Strip. Israel, which has controlled access to Gaza since 2007, said the flotilla was a provocation to divert attention from Hamas' refusal to disarm. While the United Nations and aid groups have warned that restrictions on supplies have worsened shortages in the territory, several European governments called for the release of detained activists, describing the interception as a potential breach of international law. The United States, however, backed Israel's actions, calling the flotilla a stunt, and urged allies to deny support to vessels involved in the flotilla. May 1 marks the 60-day deadline under the War Powers Act for U.S. military operations against Iran, intensifying a constitutional dispute between the White House and Congress over war powers. This War Powers Act codifies that presidents must cease military action after 60 days or receive congressional authorization to legally continue. The clock began after Donald Trump notified lawmakers of strikes launched on February 28 alongside Israel and requires congressional authorization or a drawdown of hostilities. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told lawmakers on Thursday the government believes the 60-day clock pauses or stops during a halt in fighting, a claim Democrats reject as unsupported by the law. With tens of thousands of U.S. troops deployed in the Middle East and mounting economic and political costs at home, the dispute presents a high-stakes test of Congress's authority over war powers, more than 50 years after the law was passed in the wake of the Vietnam War. Detained former Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been moved to house arrest, according to state media, after more than 3 years in military detention following the 2021 Myanmar coup. A statement from junta chief Min Aung Hlaing said her remaining sentence had been commuted to the served at a designated residence, though no location or time frame was disclosed. The 80-year-old Nobel laureate had been held in what is believed to be a prison in the capital Naypyidaw since being ousted from power. While the move appears to signal a rare concession by the military authorities, supporters and analysts say it is unlikely to significantly ease restrictions on our contact with the public. The former lakeside residence in Yangon, where she previously spent years under house arrest, showed no signs of increased activity or preparations for her return. Sources indicate she may instead be held within a secured compound in Naypyidaw, limiting access and visibility. Critics, including members of her dissolved National League for Democracy, have dismissed the move by Min Aung Hlaing as a potential attempt by the junta to improve its international image without offering meaningful political concessions. More from the international front and sports news coming up after this short breather. China has announced it will remove tariffs on imports from all African countries starting Friday, except for Eswatini. The policy expands an existing duty-free scheme for least developed African nations to cover 53 countries and will remain in effect until April 2028. Beijing described the move as the first unilateral zero-tariff arrangement by a major global economy for Africa, framing it as support for trade and development. However, analysts say tariffs are not the main barrier to African exports, noting that Africa continues to run a large and widening trade deficit with China. Last year, the gap rose 65% to around $102 billion, with African exports largely concentrated in raw materials such as oil and minerals. Currently, China's main trading partners in the region include Angola, driven primarily by oil, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Africa. The Colombian Navy has confirmed a joint maritime operation with Royal Netherlands Navy in Caribbean waters that led to the seizure of around 4 tons of cocaine and marijuana. Authorities said the operation marked the first large-scale collaboration of its kind between the two navies. 12 individuals were arrested during the operation, including nationals from Colombia, the Dominican Republic, and Venezuela. Authorities state the seizure impacted transnational criminal and terrorist organization finances by approximately $150 million, preventing the purchase of weapons, explosives, and drones intended for use against civilians and security forces. Turkey's COP31 President-designate Murat Kurum has urged the next UN climate summit to prioritize results and implementation over new pledges as global efforts to shift away from fossil fuels stall. Speaking at the International Energy Agency in Paris, he said a fossil fuel phase-out is not realistic, calling instead for progress on a voluntary transition roadmap launched at COP30. The COP31 summit in Antalya in November 2026 will also focus on climate finance amid rising geopolitical tensions and growing calls to accelerate renewable energy deployment.
Eğer krizleri bahane göstermeye kalkarsak burada açıkçası hiçbir ilerleme kaydedemeyiz. Dünya her zaman bir kriz yaşadı, yaşıyor, yaşayacak gözüküyor. Keşke yaşamasa. Krizleri bir tarafa koyduğumuzda bizim COP31'de netice almamız lazım, sonuç almamız lazım. Çünkü artık attığımız adımlar maalesef bu kötü gidişatı durdurabilecek adımlar değil. Yani bizim eylemimizde açıkçası ilerleme kaydetmek üzere olacak ve burada iklim finansmanı çok önemli. Bu konuda eşit hakkaniyet çerçevesinde yaklaşacağız ve iklim finansmanına erişimi hızlandıracak mekanizmaları hayata geçireceğiz.
Now on to sports news. Nepal registered a 6-run victory over the United Arab Emirates UAE under the Duckworth-Lewis Stun, that is DLS method, in a crucial match under the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup League 2. Nepal posted 289 runs for the loss of 7 wickets in 50 overs after batting first in match affected by rain at TU International Cricket Ground in Kirtipur of Kathmandu. Dipendra Singh Airi anchored the innings with a brilliant 100 off 94 balls, hitting 13 fours and 1 6. It was his second ODI century, and he was eventually run out after reaching the milestone. In response, United Arab Emirates national cricket team was restricted to 248 runs with loss of 8 wickets in 38 overs while chasing a revised target of 255. Despite a late push in the final overs, the visitors fell short as Nepal's bowlers held their nerve in a tight finish. Nepal's batter Arjun Kumar, meanwhile, made his ODI debut in today's match against the UAE. The result strengthens Nepal's position in the league standings of the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup League 2. With several fixtures still to be played, the battle for qualification positions and final standings in the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup League 2 remains wide open. US President Donald Trump has indicated he has no objection to Iran participating in the FIFA World Cup 2026, following confirmation by FIFA President Gianni Infantino that the team will play matches in the United States. The statement comes despite heightened geopolitical tensions linked to conflict involving the US and Israel earlier this year. Infantino told the 76th FIFA Congress in Vancouver that Iran would take part as scheduled, including games on US soil, effectively ruling out proposals to relocate fixtures to Mexico. Iran is set to be based in Tucson, Arizona during the tournament and will compete in Group G alongside New Zealand, Belgium and Egypt. The team is scheduled to open its campaign against New Zealand in Los Angeles on June 15. Before we wrap up, here's a reminder of our top stories. Nepal government continues removal of encroached land along riverbanks in the capital. Public supports government action. Nepal observes 2570th Buddha Jayanti today. Special prayers for peace held in Buddha's birthplace, Lumbini. Ubauli festival being observed across Nepal. Kirat community marks key agrarian festival with Sakela dance and land worship. Nepal joins global observance of International Workers' Day. Government launches 5-year occupational safety and health program. US calls for Lebanon-Israel talks as cross-border violence escalates. White House and Congress dispute over authority to continue strikes in Iran. And Nepal edges the UAE in tense finish at Kirtipur and ICC Men's Cricket League 2 clash, wins by 6 runs via DLS method. That's it for this edition of Prime Time News. Our next bulletin will be at 2200 hours Nepal time. Do join us through our social media and get the latest updates from our official website, nepaltelevision.com. Thank you for staying with us. Have a wonderful evening ahead.
Welcome to the studios of NTV World in Kathmandu. Public Service Broadcasting PSB Nepal's new initiative to make Nepal more visible and audible to the global audience. Welcome on board.
This is NTV World, facts that speak, insights that matter.
Telling the stories of a changing planet. NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Exploring the heartbeat of Nepali creativity. This is NTV World.
The power of story shaped by technology. NTV World.
Unearthing Nepal's hidden heritage. Discovering the timeless Nepal.
Telling stories that endure across centuries. Where culture breathes, stories bloom.
When the world moves, we make a sense of it. NTV World.
Taste of Nepal. Every recipe, every flavor tells the story.
Journalism in the digital age. Fast, focused, verified.
Stories hold power. Stories reflecting life. Stories of the hinterlands. Reporting for NTV World.
This is NTV World. Welcome to News Hour.
This is NTV World. Welcome to Primetime News.
One story at a time.
Crossing borders, connecting voices, where Nepal meets the world in dialogue. This is NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Voices that connect Nepal to the world, bringing perspective, region and relevance to every story. NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Stand by. Mic is on.
3, 2, 1, cue.
We are NTV World.
The Israel Defense Forces said it killed 3 Hezbollah fighters during operations in southern Lebanon, targeting what it described as imminent threats. The military reported additional airstrikes on Hezbollah infrastructure, including sites north of the Yellow Line, as part of a broader campaign to dismantle the group's capabilities. 1 Israeli soldier was also lightly wounded during the shooting and evacuated for treatment. Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem rejected any direct negotiations with Israel, reaffirming continued resistance. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned that Hezbollah's actions are undermining the ceasefire and said Israel would continue to respond forcefully. A Seoul High Court has increased the prison sentence of former South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol to 7 years on appeal for obstruction of arrest. The court overturned a lower ruling that had sentenced him to 5 years, citing abuse of power and interference with official duties. Judges found that Yoon used presidential security forces to block lawful arrest attempts and hinder anti-corruption investigators. His legal team said it will appeal the decision to the Supreme Court of South Korea. Yoon, who was previously impeached and removed from office, also faces a separate life sentence linked to insurrection charges. In Gaza City, mourners gathered for funeral prayers after an Israeli airstrike struck a vehicle and killed 4 people. The incident adds to ongoing violence in the wider conflict involving Israel and armed groups in the Gaza Strip. Residents said the strike caused civilian casualties, with Ibrahim al-Zubaydi describing it as part of a pattern of attacks that do not distinguish between civilians and combatants. The situation comes amid continuing hostilities in the region, where airstrikes and ground operations have caused repeated loss of life. The Gaza Strip, a densely populated territory, has seen repeated escalations of violence in recent months.
The question is, as on the order paper, as many of that opinion say aye. Aye! Of the contrary, no. No! Division, play the lobby.
Members of the UK Parliament have voted against referring Prime Minister Keir Starmer to a parliamentary committee over allegations that he misled MPs regarding the appointment of a US ambassador linked to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The dispute centres on the controversial appointment of former envoy Peter Mandelson, which has sparked months of political pressure on Starmer's government. Opposition figures had called for an inquiry, arguing the process raised questions about transparency and accountability in ministerial appointments. However, MPs voted against escalating the issue to a formal standards investigation committee. The controversy continued to fuel criticism of the Labour government, with some opponents calling for Starmer's resignation while it seeks to maintain political stability. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has arrived at the Paris Court of Appeal for questioning in his appeals trial over alleged Libyan financing of his 2007 campaign. The case centers on 2 documents written by his former aide Claude Guant, which reportedly signal a split in the defense strategy. Prosecutors are examining whether the documents support claims that funds from Libya were used in Sarkozy's presidential bid. The trial is part of a long-running investigation into alleged illegal campaign financing. Sarkozy has consistently denied any wrongdoing. Images released by the French Armed Forces show Dassault Rafale aircraft intercepting Shahed drone targets in the Middle East. The footage captures cockpit views and aerial shots of the jets engaging drones during defensive missions in the Gulf region. France says it has increased air operations to protect partner countries facing attacks linked to Iran. The operations highlight France's ongoing military role in regional air defense efforts. Pete Hegseth is set to testify before the U.S. Congress on the ongoing Middle East war as efforts to reach peace with Iran remain stalled. The conflict has intensified after Iran blockaded the Strait of Hormuz, disrupting global oil and gas flows and shaking markets. Donald Trump said Iran had been militarily defeated, though Tehran insists the war is not over and warns it still has options. Diplomatic efforts, including proposals involving easing the blockade and sanctions, have yet to produce a breakthrough. Meanwhile, fighting continues across the region, including tensions between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. International organizations, including the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the World Food Programme, and UNICEF, have warned that 7.8 million people in South Sudan will face acute food insecurity between April and July 2026. The report, based on the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification System, says this represents about 56% of the country's population and is among the worst levels globally. It estimates that over 73,000 people are already in the most severe catastrophe phase of hunger, a sharp rise from previous assessments. Millions more are classified in emergency and crisis levels of food insecurity, reflecting widespread humanitarian strain. The crisis is being driven by conflict, displacement, flooding, economic decline, and poor agricultural output. King Charles III is on a state visit to the United States, where he met President Donald Trump at the White House for high-level talks aimed at strengthening UK-US relations. The visit featured formal ceremonies, symbolic exchanges, and discussions on diplomatic and global cooperation. Charles also addressed the US Congress, marking a notable moment in the state visit and emphasizing the importance of the long-standing alliance between the two countries. Pause SOT.
The alliance that our two nations have built over the centuries, and for which we are profoundly grateful to the American people, is truly unique. So as we look toward the next 250 years, we must also reflect on our shared responsibility to safeguard nature, our most precious and irreplaceable asset. Our generation must decide how to address the collapse of critical natural systems, which threatens far more than the harmony and essential diversity of nature. We ignore at our peril the fact that these natural systems, in other words, nature's own economy, provide the foundation for our prosperity and our national security.
He later attended a state dinner hosted by Trump, where both leaders exchanged cordial remarks. The visit has been described as a major diplomatic engagement, highlighting continued efforts to reinforce ties between London and Washington. The European Union has found that Meta is failing to stop children under 13 from accessing Facebook and Instagram, exposing them to harmful content. EU Tech Chief Henna Virkkunen said preliminary findings show Meta has weak measures to enforce its own age restrictions. The investigation conducted under the Digital Services Act revealed that children can easily bypass safeguards by entering false birth dates. Regulators warned that Meta could face fines of up to 6% of its global annual revenue if the violations are confirmed. Meta has disputed the findings, stating it has systems in place to detect and remove underage users while continuing discussions with the EU.
Today, the Commission has preliminarily found Instagram and Facebook in breach of DSA for failing to prevent minors under the age of 13 from accessing their services. As we know, Meta's own terms and rules indicate that Instagram and Facebook, they are not meant for minors who are under 13 years old. Yet our preliminary findings show that Meta is doing very little to prevent children below this age from accessing these platforms.
A laundry service in Phue Phuc is going viral for offering spa-like cleaning for stuffed toys and plushies, restoring worn-out items like teddy bears and Pikachu dolls. The business, Cleaning Yon Marathon, has attracted customers from around the world seeking high-end care for sentimental toys. Cleaning engineer Masakazu Shimura says each plushie is carefully hand-washed with attention to its fabric and condition. He explained that these items often carry deep emotional value, with owners treating them as part of the family. The service has grown in popularity as people look for gentle, specialized cleaning for treasured keepsakes. The ancient pyramid site of Bajrawiya on Sudan's island of Meroe contains around 140 burial pyramids from the Kingdom of Kush's Meroitic period. Many of the structures have been damaged over time, first by 19th century looting and later by centuries of natural erosion. Today, the site is affected by the ongoing war between Sudan's army and the Rapid Support Forces RSF, which has further endangered its preservation. Despite the instability, a lone caretaker who comes from a family of traditional groundkeepers continues to watch over the ruins. He says he hopes to remain with the pyramids and never leave them, reflecting deep personal and cultural ties to the heritage site. In Popayan, indigenous communities, civil society groups and local residents marched against escalating violence in the region of Colombia. The protest was triggered by a recent bomb attack that killed 21 civilians, one of the deadliest incidents against civilians in decades, raising fears ahead of upcoming elections. The demonstrations reflect long-standing insecurity in rural and conflict-affected areas where armed groups and criminal networks remain active despite peace efforts. Colombia has a history of internal armed conflict involving state forces, guerrilla groups, and paramilitary organizations, which has particularly impacted indigenous and rural populations. Protesters called for stronger government protection and accountability as political tensions arise in the pre-election period. FIFA has increased total World Cup cash distributions to nearly $900 million, citing rising costs for participating teams ahead of the tournament. The governing body also announced new rules for the World Cup starting June 11 in Mexico City, including red cards for players who cover their mouths during confrontations as part of an anti-racism initiative. Pause.
The revenues are above expectations, and this allows us to do two things. One is, of course, to increase our investments in football development, and the other one is the decision that we took today, which is increasing the preparation money, the contributions for the member associations, and we did it for over 100 million, 112 million more, which will be at the disposal of our member associations to help them prepare for the tournament, participate in the tournament in the best possible conditions. So we are now at almost 900 million all in all for the participating 48 countries.
Welcome to this new episode of Insight on NTV World. Whether it's your pilot flying your plane, the driver behind the wheel of your bus, or the rider delivering your food through an application, our daily lives depend on the people who move the world. But right now we are seeing a collision between the old ways of working and a new reality. From technology that is completely rewriting the rules of the job to global conflicts that put transport workers directly in the line of fire. In this era of disruption, how can workers protect their future? To help us find out, we are joined by the General Secretary of the International Transport Workers Federation, Stephen Cotton. Stephen, welcome to Insight.
It's fantastic to be here. It's always a pleasure to visit Nepal. It's my second opportunity, so I'm really looking forward to these 2 days.
It was a bit of a rainy weather when you arrived?
Yes, well, I've been here in a couple of different seasons, and that's also part of the beauty of Kathmandu. It has seasons, and when the sun shines, it's a very bright place to be.
When you're in here, of course, you are for work purposes.
Yes.
But what do you like doing in Kathmandu or elsewhere in Nepal?
Well, I think certainly from my position, it's talking to people, understanding where the Nepalese are and how they feel at the moment. In this particular moment, it's very important to understand their feelings.
Your arrival comes on May Day, it's Labour Day, and there are many countries, I believe 150 around, associated in your organization. You chose Kathmandu, Nepal for this May Day. Does it bring some kind of a message of solidarity?
Well, so that's a very good question. I think all of your viewers are very aware of what's been happening over the last 12 months. There's the geopolitical world, there's your geographical position, but also there's a movement here from the people, from the voters, about different things. And the new government is raising some questions about the role of unions. So when I was given the opportunity to come here and speak to the people, our members and politicians, leaders, I thought this was a really good opportunity to understand what's really happening, but also to remind everybody why unions are important and why we celebrate May Day. And irrespective of what colour, culture, creed, gender you are, unions give people a voice.
A few weeks ago, ITF board met in Berlin. What were the discussions in there and takeaways, and if there were any impactful decisions made on the board meeting?
So our board is a very reflective group. One of your leaders is on the board, and a number of leaders from India and Sri Lanka, so the sub-region is very well represented. But it's a global position, and I think the big challenge for us and for transport workers, and you mentioned it in the introduction, is the constant conflicts and what does that mean, and the acute problem. So, as in all cases, unions are movers for peace and part of reconciliation and conversation. So there was a very strong statement. We had some academics talk about the situation in Iran. But it's not just the situation in Iran, it's the impact of the Gulf, it's the money from the Gulf countries, it's the job opportunities for Nepalese on the ground. So we basically issued a very strong statement calling for peace, but also let's try to look at what we can do to help people. I'm never continue to be surprised or disappointed that we keep going to wars all over the globe. You mentioned Ukraine and the Red Sea and the situation in Gaza and Palestine and Lebanon, situations in Africa. Always people are impacted, and where they're people, they're transport workers. So for us it's like respect the people, protect the people, but understand the consequences of governments, that you start wars and there is a domino effect that impacts people's lives, death, families, children, but then also economies. So it was a strong message about how do we get our strong message across to leaders in the world.
The structure of having unions has been in place for decades, but what do you think was the rationale behind our government mulling over scrapping or dissolving the structure itself?
So if we look back at why May Day is Labour Day, 1886 in Chicago, a peaceful demonstration turned into a violent demonstration, and that's why we commemorate the 1st of May. And then the question with the situation here, and again, we've worked very hard in the ITF to create space for young people. Clearly in transport we need to do more to encourage women to be part of the transport infrastructure and jobs. So we can understand some of the frustration, but I think we believe in talking, we believe in bargaining, we believe in representing our members, and we would always encourage all governments to engage in a conversation, whether we want to change the rules or the rules by which we operate. And of course we have to modernise. We mentioned technology. Things will change, but we have to change as unions, no question, have to evolve. But it's better in partnership, it's better in consultation, it's better with representation.
What do you mean when you say evolve?
So the demands of garment workers in 1886 are very different to the challenges of workers in 2026 in some senses. If we look at what are the role of unions, occupational health and safety, safe to go to work, safe to come home from work. Good terms and conditions. 1886 they were arguing about a 5-day week rather than a 6-day week. Good contracts, which means legal, recognised by the judiciary, enforceable, protected. All those things still relevant. But the new things, the climate impact, the technological impact, how the evolving technology impacts on the workplace, but also the economy. So I think when we talk about evolving, there's those issues about the big ideological challenges, but I also mentioned young people and women. Historically, there's been many powerful women advocates for the right to vote, the right to be part of a labour movement, but we need to do more because, first it's just common sense. If you're excluding 50% of the world's population, that's plain dumb. But also, women bring different skills, different education, different empathies, different outlooks, and that's particularly important as we face new challenges as we have to evolve. And then as what we've seen here with Gen Z, that young people's expectations, irrespective of which part of the globe you come from, are changing dramatically. Work-life balance, the trust in social media, the evolving employment by gig economy. These are things that some people find great, other old trade unionists find terrifying. But the reality is we have to confront it. It's not going away. It's not, the ITF has a relationship, I don't think Uber operate here, but Uber, which was one of the biggest disruptors, and we have a conversation because they have potentially 10 million workers around the world. Many Nepalese will be working on Uber platforms in other countries around the world. So the job for us is to understand the changing world, reevaluate our principles against today's challenges, and come to the table and talk about it.
It's also probably a subjective question to ask because not all countries or contexts are similar.
So you can, Sarah, that's such a decent, strong point. Different countries have different legislation, and unions constantly are, shall we say, fighting for survival. In the European Union, there's strong labour regulations, there's strong occupational safety rules about hours of work, fatigue, the risks. In civil aviation, there's flight time regulation. So you can say, well, why do we still need unions if we have good legislation? Well, enforcement. The reality is governments spend less on labour inspections now because the economic squeeze on all economies, particularly in the global north. So the role is unions have to adapt to the different changing face. Controversy, we work on a global level, and we were doing serious work in the Gulf trying to defend migrant workers, which is, we know there's many Nepalese in construction, in transportation, in hospitality, in Saudi, well, all over the Gulf. And now the reality is they're at risk because there's a war. Who's going to advocate for them if there aren't strong unions? So the reality is laws are different. In some places we're fighting for new labour law. And certainly when we come to gig economy, we're trying to establish some barriers and some controls over those challenges. So for us, yes, there's a change of government. Yes, there's a swell of energy from the Nepalese voters, but we need to protect the principles.
Mm-hmm. From your vantage point as the head of the ITF, what is the current health of the global labour movement? Are workers winning?
I don't think I can, and I've been around quite some time, any Labour leader that will say we're winning, and we would have to define what is the measurement of winning. So for me, I don't think the job is ever finished, because people's expectations change, the economic situation changes, the geopolitical situation changes, and we cannot pretend that those don't have an impact on workers. So for us, the challenge is always how are we fit for purpose. I think the biggest challenge is the world is evolving so fast. Can we keep up to speed with the new challenges? So we are relevant. We'd like more members. Mm-hmm. We'd like to be heard in government environments. We'd like to be heard by multinational companies, which have a lot of influence now. Probably the biggest influence in our history as a planet. So the challenge is, how do we mobilise on a global level to be heard around the issues that are pertinent to working people?
Mm-hmm. This June, the ILO is going to discuss new international law for platform economy. What is the ITF's red line during this discussion?
So I will try to manage my long explanation, Sarah. First of all, we find the gig economy and the employers' lack of acceptance that workers are employees. So there's a fundamental legal debate at the root of this conversation. So we're still advocating that anyone that works on gig platforms should be some form of employee. For governments, that's a challenge because it comes to social security. You need to be in a system to collect, particularly if you want to collect pension or medical benefit. But for us, the ITF is determined to get a convention, somewhat concerned with the American government's behaviour over international rules at the moment, very aggressive on some levels, trying to disrupt the UN system. So the ITF's position is we will defend the UN system, we will fight for the rights of platform workers, but we are ready to have a conversation about the flexibility that we need to have to bring those workers in platform employment into our systems. So how do unions represent? How do governments collect social benefit? How do they get protected by occupational safety and health legislation? So red lines may be very strong. If you know the International Labour Organization, it's a tough environment, government, employers and unions, but we're optimistic we will get a convention.
Mm-hmm. This is a very tricky time to be in. There's global conflicts, there's war, and it's affecting many transport workers from Red Sea to Ukraine as well. How does this, in this position of time, ITF find itself navigating the challenges and maybe providing a direction to decision makers, policy makers?
Yeah, I think it is probably the most difficult time in many people's living memory. As I mentioned, ITF firmly believes in the UN system, firmly believes in a rule-based global market, economy, society. So we just have to keep reaffirming the importance of peace, the fact that, of course, different countries are in different stages of economic development, and without rules, how can people fairly build and transition their economies if it's a complete free-for-all and there are no rules, and there's no rules about trade, and there's no rules about enforcement of regulation, or even, you know, I'm not a great believer in sanctions unless you can prove there are an economic advantage rather than a disadvantage. I think some of the wars emanate from some of that frustration. For this particular, for your country, you're in a very interesting and beautiful geographical spot, but it comes with some very influential neighbours. And that challenge is also part of how do we respond to that. So the IGF's message is talk to our people, understand the problems in the grassroots, try to look at the global picture and where are the pinch points or the points of access or the pressure points where we can build coalitions. So I'm a strong believer in working with the more progressive employers who still believe in a rule-based society. And we go to the International Labour Organisation, or we would go to the International Maritime Organisation or the Civil Aviation Authority with employers, with multinationals, to say if we had it like this, it would be better. And I think that's the role of unions, is still to have an aspiration to represent working people and their desires to be successful and secure in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Looking through till 2030, perhaps, what is your vision for ITF and global transport workers?
Sarah, such a difficult question with so much instability and unpredictability. Certainly from an organisational position, we want to grow our influence. We want to have relationships with progressive governments, progressive employers. We want to make sure we still represent the grassroots, and that's why what's happening in Nepal at the moment is so internationally interesting. You've got a surge of a movement where we see around the world a lot of disenfranchisement with political lobbies and processes. So part of the reason I accepted the invitation to be here is to understand why Nepal, why the young people here, why the challenge. And I think our answer is we want to have improved and grown our membership. We want to be in a position where the transport industry is more accessible to women, and there's more young people coming because they see there's an opportunity to have a good, prosperous career in a secure, well-paying job. So for us, it's, you know, in a way, it's a test on the state of society. If we can't find good jobs for transport workers, then the world is in some form of trouble. Because as you said at the outset, transport workers move the world. They cross borders. They go through economic challenges, climate, war zones. The reality is we have to make sure they're as safe as possible and they get the economic rewards that they deserve for their commitment.
Mm-hmm. Your presence in Nepal at this moment, I'm very confident, holds a big meaning, especially for the transport workers. What message would you want to give? So
what I would very strongly say, believe in democracy, believe that things can be changed, but change isn't always quick. And part of the conversation is how to make sure that we take everybody with us on the journey of change. Part of our touching on the future world of work, it's very terrifying for older people. So when you want to change things radically, you have to do it in collaboration, you have to do it in partnership. And we very strongly want to see Nepal grow its economy and the trickle-down effect for working men and women. So I want to be able to come back in 2030 and I want to see that it worked. And we're more than happy to support our unions here, the confederations, the government, to make sure that anything that we can do to make Nepal more successful, the labour movement globally is there to support it.
Stephen, it was lovely having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you ever so much for the opportunity.
And thank you as well for staying with us on the show. Our discourse here on NTV World to make this world a just and equitable place to live in will continue. Until next time.
Nepal is a country well known for the world's highest peak, Mount Everest, and the birthplace of Lord Buddha, the pioneer of peace. This is a country equally graced by the beauty of natural scenery and cultural riches. Unity in diversity, immense tolerance, and confluence of coexistence, Nepal is a country of its own uniqueness. Lord Buddha, the pioneer of non-violence, tolerance and peace, was born on the full moon day in Lumbini in 623 BC. Peace, compassion, mercy, tolerance and salvation are the perennial paths of Buddhism that lead or have been leading mankind to complete freedom and welfare of all humankind. Lord Buddha taught the world to engage more on spiritual contemplation following those paths. Buddhism has indeed become a new way to most sought peace and prosperity. Thus, Lumbini has been growing into a sacred destination not only for Buddhists but also for peace lovers and spiritual practitioners. The life story and its supporting remnants related to the childhood life of Prince Siddhartha Gautam can still be seen and heard in Kapilvastu. The sacred historical bits and pieces attached to King Suddhodana, the father of Lord Buddha, which are of archaeological significance, will speak of Kapilvastu as an open museum. The remnant of eastern gate of the compound of King Suddhodana's palace was the main gate to the premises. You can witness here the entrance gates in all four directions, and indeed countless remains lying on your left and right, and back and front, bearing historical significance. In ancient time, the area was even known as Kapilvastu as today it is, but later the place was also called Tulalakot. According to Buddhist books and literature, Devdaha in Rupandehi district was homeland of Lord Buddha's maternal uncle and father-in-law as well. The bricks used to build homes are still lying plenty scattered there, and to your wonder, some bricks even weigh 12 kilograms. There is another place called Kudan, which is within the district headquarters of Taulihawa. And legend has that here, King Suddhodana encountered his son Siddhartha for the first time after the latter was enlightened to Buddha. This place was also called Nigrodhara, which is now surrounded by the remnants of stupas. Similarly, this was the very place where Buddha's stepmother, Gautami Prajapati, handed monk's dress over to Lord Buddha. Likewise, Ram Gram in Nawalparasi district is the place where a stupa of Lord Buddha's cool bone was built after his parinirvana demise. Excavation is still undergoing in this place. Kapilvastu, Lumbini, Ram Gram and Devda are therefore indelible places highly attached to the life of Lord Buddha. Kapilvastu was the kingdom of Sakya, Lord Buddha's clan, whereas Ramgram and Devda were of Koliyas. And the two states were bordered by Rohini River, some 27 kilometers east. To Kapilvastu was Lumbini, which was at that time densely cocooned by sal and ashok trees and was popularly known as Sacred Garden. Buddhist tales say once when Buddha's mother Mayadevi was journeying to her parental home, Mayadevi, she experienced delivery symptoms. Gripping a branch of a tree, she gave birth to Prince Siddhartha. According to some old Buddhist literature, the birth of Prince Siddhartha bore several symptoms and well indicated that the newborn baby was not a common birth, but a birth of a dignified, spiritual, and an incarnate. Legend has that the newborn baby walked 7 steps far immediately after it was off mother's womb. Moreover, the new baby uttered the following revelations: I would be the first among the mortals to go beyond passing through this worldly web. This is my last birth. Rebirth never happens with me again. Prince Siddhartha lived an affluent life of 29 years at Kapilvastu Palace. But when he tried to penetrate and see close to the eternal truth of life, then he started contemplating on life. Why does a man become old? Why does he suffer from different diseases? Why does he die? These were the pertinent questions that haunted him most. Driven by divine spirit to find ultimate truth, he decided to renounce royal life. One night, he left his family, friends, and palace to seek salvation and eternal truth. Roaming several days, he reached Bodh Gaya of India, and there under a peepal tree, he had gone for meditation and became Buddha. He gave his first religious preaching in Sarnath in Varanasi, India. He talked about eternal truth, human duty, peace, and the path of salvation there, and earned a number of followers. Buddha underwent parinirvana, death, at the age of 80 in Kushinagar. Addressing his followers just before his parinirvana, Lord Buddha said, my devotees will visit and throng around the places where I took birth, where I was enlightened, where I first delivered my preaching, and where I got parinirvana. Buddham sharanam gacchami, dharmam sharanam gacchami, sangham sharanam gacchami. So, Lumbini, saturated by Lord Buddha's peace-loaded messages for over ages, has been the most sacred religious sites for many, if not only for Buddhists. Today, the Buddhists and the followers of Buddhism and peace lovers of the world over visit Lumbini to pay homage to Lord Buddha and feel and get familiar to his brainchild, peace. King Ashoka, a staunch supporter of Buddha, visited Lumbini in 249 BC and built a pillar quite near to Buddha's nativity site. The Ashoka pillar bears an inscription that says, "Buddha was born here." Lumbini is not only an attractive tourism hub today, but it's also a live state of historical and archaeological significance. To preserve Lumbini, the government of Nepal and Japan Buddhist Association have jointly launched the excavation since 1992. Lumbini had undergone negligence of both government and non-government entities for centuries. Planned and coordinated effort began only in 1953. The United Nations appointed famous Japanese professor and engineer Kenjo Tange to make a master plan for the development of Lumbini. Government of Nepal accepted the proposed master plan in 1978. To develop Lumbini according to the master plan, Government of Nepal established Lumbini Development Fund in 1985. According to the master plan, Lumbini Development Region has been divided into 3 zones. At the meantime, several phases of development have also been adopted. In first zone comes Sacred Garden. Second, Zone of Stupas. And in third comes New Lumbini Village. It is expected that the Sacred Garden will create a kind of aura, ensuring peaceful ambience, natural serenity, and religious sacredness to its visitors, in which they can feel deep Lord Buddha's message of peace and compassion. The very core of Lumbini Garden is the nativity site of Buddha. The plain bas relief of Mayadevi, which is supposed to be about 17 to 1800 years old, and depicts the nativity scene has been put in the newly renovated temple. Near the temple lies Satya Kund, sacred pond, where Mayadevi was supposed to have taken bath before giving birth to Buddha. Zone of Stupas is another important feature of Lumbini Master Plan, within which territory countries, international associations and devotees of world over can build stupas of their own in dedication to Lord Buddha. Moreover, the zone of stupas has been divided into two. In the western part, the followers of Mahayana sect are building their stupas, whereas eastern part is dominated by Theravada sect. This zone of stupas has 41 geographic subdivisions in which various countries, organizations and devotees have been building chortens, monasteries and stupas respectively. With a view to carry study and research on Buddhism and its inherent philosophy, a cultural studies center has been set up in Lumbini. The study center has museum, library and archives in which you can find Buddhism-related books, literature, arts and other valuable materials. Similarly, Lumbini International Research Center has been set up, which provides materials and other needed support to researchers of other religion, philosophy and culture. There is also a library for those who want to study about peace and religion. Another major attraction of Lumbini is its eternal flame, which is placed in Shanti Kunj Peace Hour. The flame was ignited on the occasion of the International Peace Year in 1985. The flame can be considered as bold symbol to keep Lord Buddha's peace messages alive. Lumbini village is the exterior part of Lumbini Master Plan, where various facilities of lodging and fooding for the visitors are catered in depending on their capacities. There are a number of cheap and affordable rest houses to moderate ones and luxury hotels laced by all modern amenities. A peace stupa has been built in the northern side of Lumbini. It is the tallest stupa in the area. The story of the greatness of Lord Buddha's birthplace, Lumbini, is not an imagined story of a next world. Lumbini, in fact, is the most sacred place which can emanate peace, friendship, kindness, compassion, and feeling of coexistence to all people of all ages. This is a destination to inward peace, a holy place for enlightenment. Indeed, the sacredness of Lumbini existed in the past too. It is today too, and it will be tomorrow too.
Dai Lake in Karnali province is a geographically remote district, yet rich with untapped potential for tourism. Stepping into Dai Lake, celebrated as a treasure trove of Khas art, culture and heritage, brings a unique sense of joy. Journey begins amid its natural beauty, leading us toward Mahabur Rural Municipality. As we leave the mid-hill highway, the terrain becomes challenging, with hilly, muddy roads demanding patience and skill. Long lines of vehicles crawl carefully along the cliffs, reflecting both the difficulty of the route and the enduring devotion of Mahabur Dham. Many travelers choose to continue on foot, advancing step by step toward their destination. Passing through Channa, Dasarathi, Okharbanz, Bhavsaini, Nauli and Unipata, pilgrims ascend the slopes toward Lisne before finally reaching Mahabur Patan. Pilgrims from Dai Lake and nearby districts often arrive late at night, having begun their journey the previous day. The path to Mahabur Dham is thrilling, adventurous and breathtaking, made even more dramatic by the steady rain, drifting fog and steep inclines. Yet the journey itself feels uniquely rewarding. Mahabur Lake or Mahabur Dham, located within Mahabur Rural Municipality, is a remarkable place of natural beauty, religious significance and cultural heritage. Situated at an altitude of 4,200 meters, the area is adorned with emerald lakes, grazing flocks of sheep and goats, and a sky that dances with Himalayan mist. Every year, during Janai Purnima, a grand fair is held here, drawing thousands of devotees from across the region. Mahabur Dham's spiritual importance is deeply rooted in the ancient worship of Lord Shiva, revered here as the origin site. From Mahabur Lake, visitors can enjoy magnificent views of Api and Sai Palhimal, and on clear days, even the plains of Bardia. Given its religious importance and natural splendor, Mahabur Dham holds immense potential as a religious tourism destination. Improving the rough, narrow access roads is essential for supporting this growth. Mahabur Dham is more than a pilgrimage site. It is a confluence of culture, history, faith and nature. To truly appreciate its significance, one must visit Mahabur Lake at least once, immerse oneself in its natural beauty, and experience the serene environment that leaves a lasting impression.
People simply observe and take pride in artists and their promotion of Malaysian culture internationally. But nobody cares how they struggle just to survive and maintain their sanity, the waves of stress that are constantly present, and how it impedes their creative minds. The life of an artist is like an uneven curve. It never moves smoothly through a straight line. As an artist herself, Shima tries to make her life easy and its journey smooth sailing in a straight line. But this does not happen. After graduating with a bachelor's degree in art and design with a major in pottery and ceramics in 1982, Shima started her own business. She did not only do batik paintings on fabric and other soft materials, but also took part in painting, designing and production of batik garments. All these activities did not make her happy, and she could not sustain herself financially. Then she decided to concentrate on paintings.
Things that you can comfort with, you can live with it. Because for the beginners, they have to find things, and it's not easy to get all the materials. So first, you have to survive. Second stage, after you survive, you want to find yourself. That's a long way until that you become famous because of something in the painting itself. So it's comfort, because it comes like it's not a day or a month or a year. It's going to be continued, maybe until you die.
Shima has been concentrating her creative works on paintings for nearly 2 decades. Her artworks mainly reflect traditional houses as imagery. She wants to spill the colors of her childhood experiences onto the canvas consciously.
This is from the experience before that you have. You see things, you see something that inspired you, that is the one that comfortable with, so that you just go on with that subject. Like a house is something that we experienced before. We live in those kind of houses, traditional, that which is in our childhood. We grown up there, and it's in the memory because we don't have it anymore.
Within the imagery of traditional houses, Shima does not only want to have nostalgic gratification, but also represent Malaysian multiculturalism in her paintings.
If you are Malay, there was the influences in the houses. If you are Indian, there were some images that shows. So this is what all about Malaysian multicultural. We have huge things to explore. It's something about our country. It's something about Malaysia in a way of you create it.
Devotion, patience, tolerance, commitment, and inherent creative capacity are the fundamental qualities of an artist. Being an artist, Shima always feels the challenges of creating a new painting.
I think the challenge is the artist itself. How they're going to create good work, good artwork that you can show that to the public. That is the most challenging, because whether the public can accept it or not, and you can think whether you can continue with this career or not.
Once the painting is completed, Shima has a happy moment. It is a kind of great winning.
Happy moment, you've been rewarded. You won something. You've been, like I said, rewarded means whether you winning some contest or you've been rewarded because of your artwork being chosen for some reason of, your painting was in that certain place, which is people are looking up at it.
Being an artist is not always good. On many occasions, Shima has had very bad experiences within her society.
At the first step, you've been ignored because they say that your artwork is not going anywhere. It's very disappointed.
Like Shima, 21 other artists have been working in the artist colony. The colony is a traditional village-based art center where artists from different fields and expertise do their works. There are 11 government-subsidized wakafs, open-air wooden shelters built for artists within the craft complex in Kuala Lumpur. In the village, artists do not only create artworks, but also conduct various educational activities, such as teaching, training, and observational programs.
That's how you get the color, okay? Wherever you do, you must.
Just a comment on my part.
Every artist working in this village has their own style and creativity. They have been working with different mediums, forms, and compositions. Their different artistic talents create their distinct identity. However, they have a common practice of promoting the Malaysian way of living and culture.
I'm the one who did the painting about art, Malaysian naive art, to promote Malaysia, especially when the tourists come over here, what they can bring back to visit Malaysia while they are on tourism. So to present my country, so they know what is Malaysia they have.
My subject is more to flora and fauna, and this is, as you can see here, this is more to semi-abstract artwork, and I'm really concentrate on texture series, and this is considered my latest series.
It's my painting normally my environment. Normally my family like this. This my family, my son, my daughter. Look together. The title is together. That's mean well, I create a watercolor on a theme of the mangrove swamps of Malaysia. I travel from north to south just to record all the pictures, all the picturesque view of the mangrove. And back at home, I'll record it on my paper with watercolor.
A lot of Malaysian artists, they use a lot of images from surrounding, like historical buildings, like the traditional costume, something like that. So I think that show that Malaysian art scene, they have their own style.
Artists have their own particular perspectives and viewpoints to observe the surroundings and lives. They are born with certain natural gifts and talents. They also develop exceptionally critical senses. They do recreation of the reality onto canvases. Their artworks are like mirrors that reflect different dimensions of local reality. The tourists, however, prefer local motifs in the artworks.
It's quite interesting to see some modern art. This complex is very interesting because there's a lot of different types of art and craft.
This is very different, and I particularly like her use of colours in the repeated motifs that she's got on display here.
I really like the Malaysian art because this one is very colourful and sketch was very beautiful.
Although the artists have been contributing a lot to promote the Malaysian culture internationally, they are under the wave of extreme stress. They have been struggling with hard times just to survive.
Not enough income to survive, to get the sourcing, like selling the painting, to make you alive. That is the most important in their mind. Besides, they want to produce a good work.
Audience has to have to appreciate Malaysian art more.
Di Malaysia ni dari segi pasaran mungkin belum luas.
To survive as an artist is quite tough at the moment now. It depends on the how you tackle the customer and how they like it your painting or not. That is the only way.
Struggle a lot to keep on survive and keep on doing your work, because many artists you can find, they do halfway.
The major buyers of Malaysian artworks are foreign visitors. However, due to severe global economic recession, the official statistics of the Malaysian Tourism Ministry show that the inflow of foreign tourists are very unpredictable. This has immensely affected the sale of artwork. Artists have no choice but to bear the pain.
We have to think about to promote Malaysian art. Malaysian artists have to try to find the funding, so and from that way they can promote themselves. If we want to ask government to help us, in that way also can, but the government have a lot of things to think about, so artists should think their own way. I think like Malaysian government have to must start to collect artwork from the artists, like their government department. They have a lot of department. They have to start to buy artwork.
Artists like Shima are struggling against a dire situation to overcome. After investing their golden age in the field, artists are continuously creating their arts and seeking the support from society. Shima has taken these circumstances as a school of life. She has a strong commitment and beautiful dreams to be the best artist possible.
You have to sell the painting to survive, to get the money to buy the food or to pay any bills. But then when that problem is solved, or you get a way to solve the problem, I think it's going to be, you learn like in a school, but this is not a formal school. It's like a life school. I want to create something of your own brand, of your own mark in your country. You are not being comparing with other artists. That is the most that most artists wanted. But it's not going to be happen in one day.
Artists and artworks are an integral part of any society. Despite the extreme stress on their minds, they document the contemporary history of social reality. They also make many significant contributions to social transformation, critiquing evil elements and innovating new ideas. The life of an artist is never smooth like a straight line. However, one cannot imagine life without art.
This is The World This Week, your weekly roundup of the latest international events and updates. This is me, Bhavana Casey. In this edition, we bring you the stories making headlines across the globe, from geopolitical tensions to major political developments to cultural celebrations and remarkable feats. We have all that you need. Let's begin with developments from the Middle East, where tensions are once again escalating amid sharp exchanges between Tehran and Washington. Iran's President Pezeshkian condemned the U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports as an intolerable escalation, as U.S. President Trump warned Washington could resume the war, underscoring rising tensions despite stalled diplomatic efforts. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian has strongly condemned a U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports, describing it as an extension of military operations by Washington and calling the move intolerable amid rising tensions between the two countries over security and maritime access in the region. In Washington, U.S. President Donald Trump escalated rhetoric further, saying the United States might need to restart war with Iran, while also insisting that details of ongoing diplomatic engagement remain tightly controlled.
The remarks came as tensions remain high over strategic shipping routes and stalled diplomatic negotiations, with both sides exchanging sharp warnings and signaling limited progress towards de-escalation. Meanwhile, a legal theme of political dispute has emerged in the United States over whether a statutory 60-day deadline governing military action against Iran remains in effect during a ceasefire, with the Trump administration and Congress offering a sharply different interpretations of the law. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told lawmakers that the current ceasefire means the 60-day clock pauses or stops, arguing that the administration is not required to meet a midnight deadline to seek congressional authorization for continued military operations against Iran. However, U.S. Senator Tim Kaine rejected that interpretation, saying he does not believe that the statute allows for the deadline to be paused under a ceasefire agreement.
On Iran, ultimately, I would defer to the White House and White House counsel on that. However, we are in a ceasefire right now, which our understanding means the 60-day clock pauses or stops in a ceasefire. You're not in. Yeah. It's our understanding, just so you know.
Okay, well, I do not believe the statute would support that. I think the 60 days runs maybe tomorrow, and it's going to pose a really important legal question for the administration. We have serious constitutional concerns, and we don't want to layer those with additional statutory concerns. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
The 60-day limit triggered when President Donald Trump notified Congress in early March of military strike. The 60-day limit triggered when U.S. President Donald Trump notified Congress in early March of military strikes requires the administration to either obtain congressional approval for the use of force or begin winding down hostilities once the period expires. The disagreement highlights the ongoing tensions between the executive branch and Congress over the war powers and the legal limits of U.S. military engagement in Iran. And staying with the same reason, diplomatic efforts appear to be facing new setbacks as the United States adjusts its engagement strategy as Trump cancelled a planned U.S. delegation trip to Pakistan for talks with Iran, signaling a hardening stance as diplomatic efforts over the ongoing conflict and tensions in the Strait of Hormuz remain stalled. U.S. President Donald Trump cancelled a planned trip by U.S. officials to Pakistan for talks on the Iran war on Saturday, shortly after Tehran's delegation had left Islamabad. Trump said he had cancelled his envoy's planned trip to Pakistan for peace talks with Iran, telling reporters that the United States had all the cards as tensions persisted. He added that the United States would proceed on its own terms and that the other side could initiate contact when ready, reiterating that Washington held the advantage.
I'll deal with whoever runs the show. They don't know. They are fighting with each other. There's tremendous infighting. They're probably fighting for leadership. In many cases, I think they're fighting not to be the leader because we knocked out 2 levels of leaders. But I'll deal with whoever we have to. But there's no reason to wait 2 days, have people traveling for 16, 17 hours. And we're not doing it that way. We'll do it. When they want, they can call me. We have all the cards. We've won everything. We have all the cards.
Earlier, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi held talks with mediator Pakistan, saying afterwards that he had shared Iran's position on ending the war, but was yet to see whether the U.S. was truly serious about diplomacy. Diplomatic efforts have stalled despite Trump's extension of a ceasefire that had been due to expire on 22nd of April to allow talks to continue. Both sides have been locked in a standoff over the Strait of Hormuz, with Iran restricting passage through the key shipping route in the wake of the U.S.-Israel commencing strikes in February, as well as over Tehran's nuclear ambitions. The U.S. has since increased its naval presence in the strait, through which roughly a fifth of the world's oil supply passes, to block Iranian oil exports. The White House had said the Iranians want to talk when the trip was announced on Friday, but Iran had said there are no plans for a direct meeting. From geopolitical tensions, now we move to Africa, where Mali has been rocked by deadly coordinated attacks across multiple regions. Its defense minister Sadio Kamara has also been killed amid a wave of coordinated attacks. Mali's government has claimed to have deferred several complex and coordinated attacks which targeted cities across the country, including Bamako, Kati, and Kidal, leaving at least 16 civilians and soldiers injured. Reports suggest the assault by the separatist Azawad Liberation Front FLA, which seeks a breakaway ethnic Tuareg state, was primarily focused on northern cities, while the jihadist group Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam had staged simultaneous attacks on multiple locations across the country. Malian Minister of Territorial Administration, in a televised statement said the situation is fully under control in all affected localities.
Le gouvernement de la transition du Mali porte à la connaissance de l'opinion nationale et internationale que dans la matinée du samedi 25 avril 2026, des groupes armés terroristes ont mené des attaques complexes et coordonnées visant certaines villes du pays, notamment les villes garnisons de Kati, de Sévaré, de Gao, de Kidal et de Bamako.
Meanwhile, Mali's Defense Minister General Sadio Camara has been killed amid coordinated attacks on military sites across the country. Camara was a central figure in the military government that seized power after back-to-back coups in 2020 and 2021. The news came a day after his residence in the garrison town of Kati came under attack during the simultaneous attacks. Mali has for years been plagued by insurgencies by groups affiliated with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group, as well as a separatist movement in the country's north. In Southeast Asia, political developments continue to unfold in Myanmar, where former leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been moved to a house arrest. The 80-year-old Nobel laureate has been held in detention, probably in the military prison in the capital Nay Pyi Taw, since he was removed from office in a military coup in 2021.
Little has been seen and nothing heard from Aung San Suu Kyi since she was arrested on the day the armed forces ousted her elected government more than 5 years ago. A statement by military leader Min Aung Hlaing, who led the coup, said he had commuted her remaining sentence to be served at the designated residence. Aung San Suu Kyi came to power in 2015 after Myanmar's then rulers introduced democratic reforms. Before that, she spent decades of military rule as a pro-democracy activist and was previously held for more than 15 years under house arrest. State media broadcast a picture of her sitting with two uniformed personnel. Her son, Kim Ari, said he was skeptical about the announcement and that he did not even have proof that she was alive. He said the picture was meaningless as it was taken in 2022. Prior to the announcement, nothing was known about her health or living conditions, and Kim Aris said in December he had not heard from her in years. The coup leader Min Aung Hlaing is eager to end his regime's international isolation and appears more confident after a string of battlefield wins against armed opposition groups. The military junta also held an election earlier this year, restoring a nationally democratic government, but which leaves the same military leaders in charge.
Meanwhile, in the United States, security concerns have once again come into focus following a shooting incident at a high-profile event in Washington. U.S. President Trump voiced strong support for the United States Secret Service while praising agents for swiftly neutralizing the attacker and securing the guest. U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed strong support for the Secret Service following a shooting incident at a Washington, D.C. hotel on Saturday, saying the agents did an excellent job in neutralizing the attacker and securing the safety of senior officials and guests. Speaking after the incident, U.S. President Trump said he was not alarmed during the attack, stating that he was not worried and that he understood life in what he described as a crazy world.
I wasn't worried. I understand life. We live in a crazy world.
A White House official said Trump is standing by the leadership of the Secret Service after the gunman opened fire near a security checkpoint in the hotel foyer, where a high-profile dinner event was taking place one floor below. The suspect, identified as 31-year-old Cole Thomas Allen from California, was arrested at the scene and is expected to face formal charges in a Washington court hearing. Officials say Allen reportedly opened fire close to the venue's perimeter before being subdued by a security personnel. Meanwhile, security concerns have extended across the Atlantic as preparations continue for a state visit by King Charles and Queen Camilla to the United States, scheduled to begin later today. In London, members of the Stop Trump coalition staged a protest outside Buckingham Palace, criticizing the planned diplomatic engagement and voicing opposition to Trump's policies. The visit, meanwhile, comes at a time when relations between the US and the UK are particularly sensitive amid public differences over President Donald Trump's war on Iran. From security concerns, now we shift to global diplomacy and climate action, where nations gathered in Colombia to push for stronger commitments on fossil fuel reduction. Nations from around the world pushed for faster action on phasing out fossil fuels as frustration grows over stalled progress at last year's COP30. Countries from across the globe pledged to accelerate efforts to transition away from fossil fuels as a voluntary climate conference concluded in Colombia following last year's stalled negotiations at COP30. Delegates from small island nations, European governments, and emerging economies gathered in Santa Marta with a shared goal to move faster and further than previous international agreements have allowed. The meeting, held outside the formal UN climate framework, signaled growing frustration with slow progress in official negotiations. The conference drew participation from countries particularly vulnerable to climate change, including low-lying island states, alongside major economies seeking to demonstrate leadership on emission reductions. Unlike past summits, attendance was voluntary and focused on concrete commitments rather than consensus-based declarations. The gathering comes in the wake of last year's COP30, where attempts to secure stronger global commitments to phase out fossil fuels fell short amid divisions between developed and developing nations. While no binding agreement was reached, officials said the conference helped build momentum for more ambitious national policies and future international cooperation. In Europe, Ukraine has marked a solemn milestone, remembering victims of one of the world's worst nuclear disasters. Kiev marked 40 years since the Chernobyl nuclear disaster with a memorial ceremony attended by survivors and emergency workers, honoring victims of the 1986 reactor explosion that released radioactive contamination across Europe and much of Ukraine.
On April 26, 2026, 40 years after the worst nuclear disasters, flowers were laid at the monument to the victims of Chernobyl. Around 50 people attended the event, including liquidators who took part in the aftermath of the 1986 accident. The disaster happened during a late-night safety test on reactor number 4. Due to a combination of flawed reactor design and operator errors, the reactor became unstable and exploded, releasing massive amounts of radioactive material into the atmosphere. The explosion and subsequent fire sent a radioactive cloud across large parts of Europe, contaminating land, water, and air far beyond the immediate area. The liquidators described their roles in the early response and long-term containment efforts. Some were involved in evacuation operations and the transport of materials to the reactor site in the first days after the explosion, later working in shifts on machinery under hazardous conditions. Others were mobilized through military enlistment and served for months in 1986, taking part in the construction of metal structures and the protective sarcophagus. In the immediate aftermath, 2 plant workers died from the explosion, while dozens of emergency responders and firefighters later succumbed to acute radiation sickness. Thousands more people were exposed to dangerous levels of radiation, leading to long-term health issues, including increased rates of cancer. The Chernobyl disaster had far-reaching consequences. It exposed major flaws in nuclear safety practices, led to sweeping reforms in reactor design and international regulations, and significantly impacted public perception of nuclear energy worldwide. Decades later, it remains a powerful reminder of the risks associated with nuclear power when safety systems fail.
In the Middle East, however, there was a rare moment of celebration as hundreds of couples took part in a mass wedding ceremony in Gaza, offering a rare moment of celebration and relief for families facing economic hardship in the enclave.
Around 300 Palestinian couples took part in a mass wedding ceremony in Deir el-Balah in the central Gaza Strip. The event, dubbed the Dress of Joy 2, marks the second round of a mass wedding initiative organized by the United Arab Emirates. Officials said the ceremony aims to support young couples facing economic hardship, providing financial assistance and essential wedding arrangements. The gathering brought together families and community members in a rare moment of celebration amid ongoing challenges in the enclave. The ceremony also symbolized resilience and unity among Palestinians living under difficult conditions. Organizers highlighted the importance of fostering hope and stability for the younger generation. Participants expressed gratitude for the support, describing the event as a memorable and uplifting experience.
From social celebration to sports inclusion, Mexico has hosted a landmark football final showcasing visually impaired women athletes. The event also highlights the growing prominence of inclusive para-sports in the country.
Players from Puebla's Topos and Mexicali's Linces competed in a closely contested women's football final for visually impaired athletes at the Utopia Michuca Sports Complex in Mexico City. The match featured intense physical and tactical competition as both teams battled for control of the ball, demonstrating high levels of coordination, communication, and spatial awareness required in visually impaired football. Organizers said the tournament is part of a broader effort to promote inclusive sports opportunities and provide competitive platforms for athletes with visual impairments across Mexico. The final drew attention to the growing development of adaptive sports in the country, highlighting both the athletic skills and resilience of the participants as they competed at the national level. The event also underscored increasing investment in the para-sports infrastructure and training programs aimed at supporting athletes with disabilities. Spectators and supporters applauded the players' performance, emphasizing the competitive quality of the match. Officials said such tournaments are helping to raise awareness and visibility of inclusive sporting disciplines nationwide.
Meanwhile, in South Asia, environmental concerns are growing over the future of the Bengal tiger in Bangladesh's Sundarbans, as conservationists warn that the region's iconic Bengal tigers are increasingly under threat from habitat loss, climate change, and poaching.
In the vast mangrove forest of the Sundarbans in Bangladesh, where rivers twist through dense greenery and danger feels ever present, people have long invoked spirits to protect themselves from tigers. But ironically, it is the tigers that may now need saving the most. Experts warn that the species is increasingly under threat from habitat loss, climate change, and poaching. One person fighting against this is Abdul Goni Ghazi, known locally as Goni Tiger, who has spent years promoting coexistence between villagers and the big cats. Despite the risk, he says he has saved dozens of tigers from traps and retaliation, as well as many people from fatal encounters, reinforcing his belief that both must survive together. Spanning about 10,000 square kilometers, the Sundarbans is a UNESCO World Heritage Site where tigers play a vital ecological role, helping maintain balance and protect the coastlines from erosion and storms. Yet, conservation gains remain fragile, with tiger populations increasing only slowly despite national pledges and targeted funding, including latest $4.2 million project. Rising sea levels, stronger storms, and human encroachment are steadily shrinking viable habitats, pushing the animals into closer contact with the people. At the same time, poaching and the decline of prey species such as deers continue to threaten their survival, even as strict laws such as 12-year jail term and $15,000 fine attempt to curb the illegal trade. Still, conservationists hold on to cautious hope that with sustained effort, the delicate relationship between humans and tigers in the Sundarbans can endure.
In the Netherlands, the spring has brought vibrant color and tourism as the country's famous tulip fields reach peak bloom, drawing large crowds as the world-renowned Spring Gardens enters its peak visitation period during its limited seasonal opening.
Millions of tulips have reached full bloom at the height of the spring season at the world-renowned Keukenhof Floral Park in Lisse, South Holland, drawing large crowds as the seasonal attraction enters its peak visitation period. Often referred to as one of the most iconic spring gardens in the world, Keukenhof opens for a limited 8-week window each year, during which it welcomes tens of thousands of visitors daily from across Europe and beyond. The park showcases meticulously arranged displays of tulips in a wide range of colors and varieties, forming expansive floral landscapes that are central to the Netherlands' horticulture identity. Officials and horticulturists say this year's bloom has been particularly vibrant, supported by favorable seasonal conditions that have contributed to uniform growth and strong flower density across the park's themed gardens and open fields. Visitors continue to travel in large numbers to experience the peak flowering period, which is considered the highlight of the Keukenhof season. The site remains a major contributor to Dutch tourism, while also serving as a global showcase for the country's flower cultivation industry and export strength in ornamental horticulture.
In Scotland, thousands came together for the ancient Beltane Fire Festival, celebrating the symbolic arrival of summer through fire rituals, performance and tradition. An estimated 5,000 spectators gathered on Calton Hill in the Scottish capital to mark the annual Beltane Fire Festival, a modern revival of ancient Celtic tradition celebrating the arrival of summer and the renewal of life. Held every year since 1988, the event transforms the hilltop into a theatrical display of fire, drumming and performance art, drawing crowds despite cold spring night conditions. Organizers say the festival is inspired by ancient seasonal rituals traditionally associated with the transition from winter to summer. Central to the celebration is the symbolic story of the Green Man, representing nature and rebirth, and the May Queen, representing the fertility and the cycle of growth, whose ritual interaction marks the festival's ceremonial turning point. The event, which has become one of Edinburgh's most distinctive cultural gatherings, blends folklore, performance, and community participation, attracting both locals and international visitors. Well, this brings us to the end of this episode of The World This Week. We hope you enjoyed as much as we did bringing it to you. We shall see you again next week with a new episode. Also, do follow us on our website www.nepaltelevision.com, our social media handles as well as our YouTube channel. Till then, take care and bye-bye.
In the high mountains, where the air thins and silence deepens, an ancient discipline endures. More than art, this is meditation in motion. A prayer woven into canvas, finding the divine within. This is Thangka.
Thangka भने चाहिँ त्यो समतल भूमि भने हो के हैन त्यो स्पेस भने हो त्यो रेसेमा पनि तपाईले सेतो गणमा स्पेस देख्यो नि हैन हो त्यसमा चाहिँ का लेख्ने भने चाहिँ बुद्धको वचन लेख्ने भने हो के त्यो बुद्धको वचन बागल चाहिँ त्यो चाहिँ शुद्ध छ हैन राम्रो छ त्यसले चाहिँ मानव जीवनलाई चाहिँ कल्याण मानव जीवनलाई मात्र नभएर प्राणी जगतलाई नै चाहिँ कल्याण गर्ने चिज हो थाङ्गा त्यही भएर चाहिँ जीवन जिउनेसँग चाहिँ रिलेटेड छ भनेर भने हो त्यो चाहिँ पञ्चतत्वको रूपमा चाहिँ त्यो चिनाएर त्यो तत्त्वलाई त्यो ठाउँमा जानुपर्छ भनेरको यो त आशयको रूपमा चाहिँ लगेको हुन्छ
Thangka painting is more than art. It's devotion on canvas, rooted in Buddha philosophy, traditions, and shaped by centuries of Buddhist influence. Each stroke tells a story of enlightenment.
This is not from painter's own mind. This is from the book. So painters, they have to strictly follow the rules. Through meditation, we can understand our true nature. And when we understand our true nature, we understand everybody. And our true nature is compassion. Our true nature is wisdom. And when we practice these things, we find peace, and that peace is permanent.
Thangka painting is not merely creation, it is consecration, rooted in Buddhist philosophy and perfected through centuries. Each brushstroke carries the weight of a mantra, each color a fragment of enlightenment.
खाइबो भन्छ हामीले चाहिँ आर्टिस्टलाई त्यो खाइबाले चाहिँ किन आएर चाहिँ ढोग्यो भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ तीनचोटि ढोग्यो नि त्यो शरण गमन गरे हो कि म बुद्धको शरणमा छु भन्ने हो त्यो चाहिँ बुद्ध चित्त उत्पात गर्ने भन्छ कि चित्त तपाईको शुद्ध हुनु पर्यो हैन त्यो शुद्ध भएर लेखेको थाङ्गाले चाहिँ अरूलाई पनि राम्रो गर्ने पनि प्राणी हितको लागि चाहिँ यो मैले गरेको लेखेको बुद्ध वचनले चाहिँ उहाँहरूलाई चाहिँ राम्रो होस् भन्ने आशाका साथ चाहिँ छोड्नुपर्छ कि हो यसरी चाहिँ लेखेको हुन्छ थाङ्गा चाहिँ
The Thangka is a visual sculpture, a spiritual map to transcendence. Every artist begins not with imagination, but with surrender to discipline, devotion, and compassion for all living beings. To paint is to meditate. To complete is to awaken. In today's studios, the old and the new converge. Tutors like Sushan Subedi introduce curious travelers to ancient grammar of lines and color.
All of the painting you are seeing over here, so these are known as Thangka, which is a Tibetan word which means the painting that is painted on a cotton surface. Okay, so first of all what we do is, we just take a normal cotton like this and we stretch it on a wooden frame very hardly and very tightly. Okay, so while tying it very hard on normal cotton, what happens is there are some millions of tiny holes. So if you pour the color can bleed. So we cannot do the painting on a normal cotton. So we have a process, we call it the process of canvas.
While at nearby workshops, artists like Sonam still lose themselves in the ritual of creation.
यो चाहिँ बम्बई ड्याङ कटन जुन यसैबाट चाहिँ हाम्रो ट्रेडिसनल आर्टको चाहिँ थाङ्का फर्स्ट प्रोसेसिङ चाहिँ यहीँबाट हुन्छ सरेस भन्ने गरिन्छ हामीले यो चाहिँ खासमा र याक स्किन भनेर चाहिँ प्रयोग गरिन्छ पहिलेको त्यो हिस्ट्री हेर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अनि अब यो चाहिँ हाम्रो चाहिँ माध्यम चाहिँ यो ग्लुको काम गर्छ यसले चाहिँ यो र हामीले चाहिँ माटो मिसाएर चाहिँ यसमा पानी लगाएर अब यसको कति मात्रा उ गरेर तताइसकेपछि चाहिँ अनि अब हामीले कत्रो क्यानभस बनाउने कतिवटा बनाउने त्यो हिसाबले हामीले यो सरेस माटो भनिन्छ त्यो मिलाएर मात्रा मिलाएर हामीले प्रोसेसिङमा जानु सकिन्छ हामीले चाहिँ यो क्यानभस बनाउँदाखेरि समय अनुसार मौसम अनुसारले पनि बनाउनु पर्ने हुन्छ घाम लाग्ने बेलामा बनाउनु सक्यो भने हामीले छिटो आफ्नो कामहरु छिटो छरिदो बनाउन सकिन्छ र झरी पर्ने बेलामा चाहिँ हामीलाई निकै समय लाग्छ त्यसले गर्दाखेरि यो घाम लाग्ने बेलामा हामीले बनाउन सक्यौं भने छिटो अनि यसलाई आफुलाई चाहिने मात्रामा पटक पटक यता दुई साइडमा चाहिँ क्लिन गर्नु सफा गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ अनि कतिको मात्रा हामीलाई चाहिन्छ त्यो पुगिसकेपछि हामीले त्यसपछि स्केचमा जानुपर्ने हुन्छ यो सुकिसकेपछि चाहिँ एउटा यसरी पनि हामीले चेक गर्न सकिन्छ हामीले कतिको तयारी भयो भएन यो आवाज आउनु पर्ने हुन्छ जस्तै अब ओसिएको छ भने बेग्लै आवाज आउँछ सुकेको छ भने राम्रो आवाज आउँछ यो
Thangka painting begins with the canvas stretched tight, once upon wood, now upon iron frames. The glue that seals it, once drawn from the yak, now sourced from the maple or synthesized in a lab. Yet in the scent of drying paste, the artist still reads the readiness of the soul of the painting.
So after the sketching is done, second thing we do is the coloring. So while coloring, we have different levels of artists in our school. Like from the beginner level, we have intermediate and the master level of artists. So if you go with the beginner intermediate, they use the acrylic colors. But if you go with the master level of artists, so they use the stone colors like this. Okay, so why they use the stone color is stone being a natural color. So while we apply this sort of color in the art, it remains for the longer period of time because natural thing, it doesn't have expiry date. Yeah, so the meaning and the philosophy of an art, the art itself, it is preserved for the longer period of time. So that's why they use the stone. And for the finishing of an art, so we use 24 karat real gold on the painting. Okay, so why we use the gold is not to make the painting very expensive, but if you see in Hinduism, in Buddhism, gold it is signified as in purity. So to purify the meaning and the philosophy behind the art, so we use 24 karat real gold.
Every line follows a rule, every proportion holds meaning. The face of the deity isn't imagined, it slowly reveals itself, guided by sacred patterns that keep harmony between the world outside and the spirit within. The colors come from the earth, crushed stones and minerals mixed with glue, made to last for generations. Lapis brings purity, malachite speaks of compassion, and cinnabar carries wisdom. These are just colors, they are prayers in pigment.
प्राचीन कालमा चाहिँ यो थाङ्का चाहिँ पाँचवटा कलर लेख्ने हो पाँच कलर जस्तो अग्नि तत्त्व वायु तत्त्व माटो तत्त्व हावा तत्त्व पाँच तत्त्वले बनाएको हो त्यो पाँच तत्त्वले किन बनाएको भने त्यो पाँच तत्त्वबाट हाम्रो शरीर बनाएको छ नि यो थाङ्का भनेको चाहिँ वास्तवमा के हो भने जे जति थाङ्कामा छ त्यो हामीसँगै छ जे हामीसँग त्यो थाङ्कामै छ त्यसकारण त्यो बेला चाहिँ त्यो नेचुरल हामी पनि नेचुरली बनाएको हो नि त प्रकृतिले बनाएको नि थाङ्का पनि प्रकृति नै हो त्यसमा अलिक अहिले चाहिँ कलर के छ भने पाँचवटा कलर हामीले मिसाउँदाखेरि अर्को कलर बन्छ त्यो पाँचवटा कलर मात्रै पुग्दैन त्यो बेला त्यो रियालिटी थाङ्का नजिक बसेर साधना गर्दा हामीलाई त्यो भाइब्रेसन आउँछ पोजिटिभ कुरा आउँछ यो त खालि बुद्ध जुन बुद्धले टिकाको टिचिङ गर्नुभएको नेचुरल फेनोमेना छ नि नेचर माइन्ड छ नि त्योसँग रिलेटेड छ यो
Home Bahadur Tamang, a gifted Thangka artist from the spiritual heart of Buddha, has turned his craft into a global bridge between tradition and business.
थाङ्का चाहिँ मैले 1970 सिक्न सुरुवात गरेको मेरो टिचर चाहिँ म भन्दा अघिल्लो मेरो दाइ हो साइला दाइ मेरो चाहिँ बाउपादेखि नै कलाकार हुनुहुन्थ्यो पाटन भक्तपुर छामेल दरबार स्क्वायरमा यसै पसल बेच्ने काम हुन्थ्यो अनि त्यो बेच्दा मैले यो थाङ्का चाहिँ विदेशीले किन्दो रहेछ आफैले विदेशसँग बेच्नुपर्छ भन्ने अलिकति मनमा मलाई अलिकति सोच आयो त्यसपछि मैले 2050 सालमा यहाँ सुरु गरेँ आजभन्दा 32 वर्ष अगाडि
What began as a young artist's journey through the streets of Kathmandu has blossomed into a thriving enterprise where sacred art meets business and tourism. With every brushstroke, home brings Nepal's rich spiritual heritage to the world, transforming Thangka painting into a symbol of cultural fusion.
त्यो बेला चाहिँ पसल कोही पनि यहाँ थिएन किनभने त्यो मार्केटले चाहिँ कहाँ मार्केट हुन्छ भन्ने खोज्दो रहेछ त्यो खोज्ने क्रममा म यहाँ आइपुग्यो विदेशीहरू पनि यहाँ त्यति अहिले जस्तो बस्दैन 5 मिनेट 10 मिनेटमा घुमेर जानुहुन्थ्यो त्यतिखेर खाने रेस्टुरेन्ट पनि एकजना मात्रै थियो एउटा मात्रै थियो अहिले चाहिँ होस् त्यो बेला र अहिलेमा धेरै आकाश जमिनको फरक भएको छ
His story is one of passion, innovation, and a deep commitment to preserving tradition while embracing the future.
विशेष गरी यो बौद्ध स्तूपसँग रिलेटेड छ यो बुद्धको शिक्षासँग रिलेटेड यो थाङ्गा चाहिँ संसारको मानिसहरू यो स्तूपलाई घुम्ने क्रममा यो प्रार्थना गर्ने मेन आउने ठाउँ चाहिँ यो रहेछ त्यसो भएको हुनाले यो चाहिँ विशेष गरी ओल्ड हेरिटेज साइटमा चाहिँ त्यो पनि के हो बुद्धिस्टको भएको हुनाले चाहिँ नेपालभरि नै थाङ्का बिग्ने ठाउँ चाहिँ अति महत्त्वपूर्ण चाहिँ यो नै हो वास्तवमा किनभने रिलेटेड छ यो बुद्धसँग
From the hills of Ramechhap to the heart of Bodh, Khom Bahadur Damang has a glorious story to tell. A story of will, determination, struggle, and success.
म आफै पनि रामेछाप दुर्गम जिल्लामा जन्मेको चाहिँ रोजगार छैन त्यहाँ स्कुल छैन कलेज छैन हस्पिटल छैन रोजगार छैन त्यसपछि म पनि रोजगारकै क्रममा यहाँ आएर मैले सुरुवात गर्यो अहिले चाहिँ म लगभग 49 वर्ष भयो यही पेसा गरेर दाल भात खाएको अब नयाँ पुस्तालाई पनि मैले हस्तान्तरण गर्नुपर्छ है भन्ने मेरो एउटा उद्देश्यले चाहिँ अहिले मैले नयाँ पुस्तालाई चाहिँ गाउँबाट आउनुहुन्छ स्कुल सकेर अनि बिहान चाहिँ कलेज जानुहुन्छ दिउँसो काम छैन त्यस कारणले मैले 3 महिना फ्री ट्रेनिङ दिने गरेको छ उहाँको स्किल अनुसार टेस्ट गरेर हामीले यहीँ तलब दिएर जस्तो बिहान कलेज पनि भ्यायो उसको कति हो त्यसो त्यहाँबाट एक्स्ट्रा टाइम चाहिँ 5 घण्टा 6 घण्टा 7 घण्टा मैले पनि यहाँ जीवन चलाउने चाहिँ काम भइरहेछ अहिले
For 49 years, he painted, taught, and empowered young artisans. Today, his school preserves tradition and creates futures.
हामीले यहाँ सुरुमा इन्टरभ्यू लिन्छु त्यसपछि एक हप्ता चाहिँ नि सानो र क्यानभासमा हात ट्रेनिङ दिन्छु त्यसको शरीरको बडीहरू अलिकति ट्रेनिङ दिन्छु अनि एक हप्तापछि ओके भनेर ओके या यस भने कोही मानिस नसक्ने चाहिँ नि आधा घण्टामा 1 घण्टामा उठेर गइहाल्छ म सक्दैन ढाड दुख्यो किन उसको मन धेरै भएर गयो त्यो सक्दैन ऊ आउँदैन एक दिन पनि आउँदैन मात्रै आँखा चाहिँ हुनु पर्यो हामीले अपाङ्गलाई पनि सिकाएको छ जस्तो बाहिर कान नसुन्ने पनि सिकाएको छ आँखा चाहिँ हुनु पर्यो त्यस्तै हो
As interest in Buddhism grows worldwide, so does the appreciation for our sacred art. Foreigners now come not just to admire but to learn, studying our architecture techniques and meditative Thanka traditions, giving new life to what was once known only within our borders.
बुद्धिज्म नेपाल हो नेपालमा जति छन् विश्व सम्पदामा सूचीमा भएको मठ मन्दिर गुम्बद छ यसैबाट उहाँले पनि सिकेको वास्तवमा यो जुन बौद्ध स्तूपरा भनौँ लुम्बिनी त्यो जस्तो त उहाँहरूले बनाउन सक्दैन तर यसको चाहिँ एकदम महत्त्वपूर्ण के छ भगवान या चाहिँ दोस्रो तेस्रो बुद्धको रिलेटिक यहाँ छ जति चाहिँ अहिले संसारमा यो बुद्धिज्म फैलिँदै जान्छ यो महायान बुद्धिज्म त्यतिकै ठाङ्गको भ्यालु चाहिँ बढ्दैछ अहिले जस्तो मेरै कुरा मैले 40-45 वर्ष यति ठाङ्गको महत्त्व थिएन किनभने वर्ल्ड वाइडमा बुद्धिज्ममा थिएन विदेशहरूले जानेकै थिएन उनीहरूले त्यो सुरसुर आउँदाखेरि सानो एउटा नेपाल आउँदाखेरि सुपर नेट किन नलैजाऊ भन्ने मात्रै लाइन्थ्यो अहिले चाहिँ उहाँहरू चाहिँ जस्तो अमेरिका युरोप तपाईँको यो सिङ्गापुर ताइवान मलेसिया विभिन्न देशमा चाहिँ अहिले बुद्धिस्ट प्र्याक्टिसनर धेरै उहाँहरू चाहिँ गर्नुहुन्छ त्यसको लागि चाहिँ एकदमै महत्त्वपूर्ण छ त्यस कारणले भविष्यमा यो थाङ्गा चाहिँ छ यसको मार्केट छ
As an artist, entrepreneur, and a master, he feels fulfilled, creating beauty, guiding others, and living with purpose.
मैले संसार जीवन जगतलाई थाहा पायो अहिले हामी सांसारिक जीवन छ सांसारिक जीवनमा कसरी जिउने र अर्कोलाई पनि कसरी जिउन दिने कला थाहा पायो त्यसपछि अब जुन देशमा जन्मे पनि जुन कुलमा जन्मे पनि 100% निश्चित के हो भने मृत्यु छ त्यो त निश्चित हो नि एउटै निश्चित छैन कहिले पनि निश्चित छैन तर त्यो मर्नेमा म कसरी मर्ने भन्ने कला पनि थाहा पाएँ मलाई त धेरै परिवर्तन भएको छ मैले परिवर्तन भयो भने के हुन्छ मैले ठुलो पत्यारो चढ्यो ठुलो गाडी त्यस्तो होइन तर मलाई खुसी छ सादा दाल भात खान पाएछ मैले परिवार पाल्नु पाएछ यही थाङ्गाले म जापान घुम्यो युरोप गयो चाइना घुम्यो बुद्धिस्ट कन्ट्री सबै घुमेको छ सबै ठाउँमा मैले घुम्नलाई मलाई पैसाको आपत पनि परेन थाङ्गा सँगसँगै लाँदै ब्रिफिङ गर्दै बेच्दै दर्शन बेचेको हो त्यसकारण मलाई त एकदम खुसी छु म त पनि
Then comes the awakening, the eyes. Until that moment, the thangka is silent. When the artist paints the peoples, the deity is invited to reside within. The canvas breathes, the prayer begins. From quiet Himalayan ateliers to the galleries in Tokyo, Berlin, and New York, thangkas now travel far beyond the monasteries. They adorn homes, museums, and collectors' walls, a global symbol of Nepal's artistic devotion.
And mostly, thangka word itself is a Tibetan word, so this tradition belongs to Tibetan people. This tradition belongs to Tamang. This tradition belongs to Newar community. Although they have different expression of color, technique, the detail, but this tradition, this culture belongs to these three community, and this is kind of passed on tradition. They learn this skill from their forefather to the new generation. This is how this tradition has been continuing and preserving. So it is beneficial for them to live their life, and it is beneficial for the country because this is a culture, and culture and tradition is the treasure of each country.
The trade sustains thousands. From the hum of Bodh's alleys to export crates bound for distant lands, thangka has become a vital thread in Nepal's creative economy. Yet, as markets grow, so does the tension between faith and fame, between meditation and merchandise.
कला चाहिँ दुवै राम्रै हो हैन आफ्नो आफ्नै फिलोसफी भन्ने हो यसले चाहिँ तपाईको मन भित्रको डेप्थमा जाने सिकाउने हो यसमा चाहिँ यो चाहिँ मिहिन काम हुन्छ कठिन पनि हुन्छ के किनभने यसमा चाहिँ तपाईले चाहिँ अघिको जस्तो धेरै चीजहरु चाहिँ लिनुपर्छ अनुशासन लिनु पर्यो हैन यसको विधि विधानमा बसेर गर्नुपर्छ यसमा चाहिँ अब त्यो चाहिँ तपाईको मनमा जुन फिलिङ्स आउँछ त्यो लेखिहाल्ने हो के त्यो गर्दाखेरि त्यसले पनि वर्ल्डमा चलिरहेछ यसले चाहिँ नेपालले किन त्यो अब त्यसलाई चाहिँ कम्पिटिसन गर्न सक्छ भने चाहिँ यो चीज चाहिँ अरूले गर्न सक्दैन किनभने त्यसमा मेडिटेसन ध्यान जस्तै गर्नुपर्छ के सरकारी स्कुलबाट चाहिँ स्कुलिङ देखि नै गर्नुपर्छ यसको पाठ्यक्रमहरु बनाउनु पर्छ हैन एउटा त्यो गरिसकेपछि यसको प्रमोट हुन्छ हैन हामीलाई चाहिने त त्यो प्रवर्धन हो नि तर ब्याङ्किङहरुले पनि के गर्नु पर्यो भने यसलाई चाहिँ बिना दिदोमा पनि के रे ऋण दिने वातावरण हैन कलाकारको के छुटाएर के अनि तपाईको हामीले ट्याक्स तिर्नु पर्छ ट्याक्स तिर्दाखेरि पनि कुनै एउटा चीज चाहिँ कलाकारलाई कुन ओदामा राखेर त्यसको एउटा ब्यालेन्स एउटा गरेर सरकारले गरिदियो भने यसको जन अझ फ्रस्ट्रेसन छ के फ्रस्ट्रेसनपछि त यो नेपालकै लागि चाहिँ यसले चाहिँ पर्यटनलाई पनि विकास हुने अनि त्यो स्कुल कलेजमा भयो भने पुस्ता हस्तान्तरण चाहिँ एकदम दिगो हुन्छ के
All the thangka has same meaning of peace. So foreigner, they admire philosophy. Practitioner also, they choose deities mostly to practice, to visualize, and they imagine the quality of deities with themselves. And some least person, they want it as a souvenir to decorate for the positive vibe. Some they buy it for the gift for their loved one. Philosophy reminds us about the beautiful quality And that quality gives us peace. And that peace is everyone searching for. So Thanka painting is very, very important for everyone because it is relevant with our life. If it is relevant with our life, that is truth.
But beyond commerce and canvas, a Thanka is still a mirror, reflecting a way of life where art and spirit breathe as one. Every brush that moves today carries the echo of generations, an unbroken whisper from monastery walls to the modern world. As the sun sets over the Himalayas, somewhere an artist bows before a finished Thanka. His work is now complete, his prayer released. For in every stroke lies a journey from pigment to prayer, from devotion to eternity. This is not just Nepal's art, it is Nepal's soul, painted into time.
A majestic destination blessed by cultural, religious, historic and natural diversities. Nepal is the country of Mount Everest and the birthplace of Lord Gautama Buddha. Karnali is synonymous to Nepal. One can experience the diversity of Nepal by visiting Karnali province. It is a must-go destination for those who want to experience the real Nepal. Karnali, that represents Nepal's age-old civilization, is in itself mesmerizing. The province has immense tourism potential with its unique natural, religious, cultural, archaeological, and historic diversity. The famous tourist destinations in the province have played an important role in representing Nepal at the international level. Tourism can be the base for prosperity of Karnali region based on its immense prospects. Lakes, water bodies and famous religious sites are the major attractions for tourists in this province. Rara Lake, Sefoksundu Lake, Bulbule Lake, Chayanath, Dai Lake, Sinja Valley, Humla. This is Rara. Rara is the largest lake in Nepal. The lake is situated at Chayanath Rural Municipality of Mugu District in the Rara National Park. The unique lake is not just known for the different species of rare fishes and the musk ducks, but also for the changing color as per the climatic condition. Many foreign tourists come here to witness the camouflage of this majestic lake. A virgin destination a few years back. Now more than 50,000 tourists flock the Rara Lake every year, and the number is constantly on the rise. Land and air are the two means to reach Rara Lake. You can reach Rara in a day from Kathmandu by air. From Trivandrum International Airport, Kathmandu to Nepalganj, and another flight from Nepalganj to Talcher Airport in Mugu is the easiest option. However, from Talcher, it is another 3 hours uphill walk to reach the breathtaking Rara Lake. If you choose land travel, it might take up to 3 days. A day's travel from Kathmandu to Surkhet, an overnight stay. Manma, the district headquarters of Kalikot, from Surkhet, an overnight stay. And on the 3rd day, you can reach the Rara Lake. You need not walk if you choose this route for Rara Lake. Humla is a very remote Himalayan district of Nepal bordering Mugu. It has great touristic importance. Many pilgrims who want to go to the mythical Kailas mountain via Mansarovar take the journey via Humla district. Tourists, mainly Indian pilgrims, travel to Mansarovar, one of the largest pure water bodies at the highest altitude in the world, for religious purposes. This is the shortest and the most convenient route for the pilgrims. Most of the pilgrims traveling to Mansarovar choose air trip up to Simikot of Humla from Nepalganj From Simikot, helicopter trip up to Hilsa, from where they enter Chinese autonomous region of Tibet. One day's drive from entering Tibet, the pilgrims reach Mansarovar. The Kimi Valley of Humla is another new tourist destination in the district. Ancient idols of archaeological importance and the monasteries have given it a new name, the Valley of Monasteries. These priceless statues, sculptures, and artifacts are the major attractions in the valley. Majority of the tourists visiting Karnali are the pilgrims from India. Culturally, the people of the Karnali region believe in multi-deity worship, but majority pay homage to their ancestral deity, the master god. The famous ritual of worshipping 12 master deities has become a popular subject for researchers and tourists alike. Karnali is a majestic land, naturally as well as culturally. It has religious and cultural heritages in abundance. It offers attractions for tourists of varying interests. Somewhat deprived in education, health, and employment. Karnali's tourism potential, due to its unique and diverse nature, geography, religion, culture, history, and archaeology, is unexplored. Many potential tourist destinations have yet to be explored in this region. So far, 101 destinations in the region have been branded as of touristic importance. All
Nepal government continues removal of encroached land along riverbanks in the capital. Public supports government action. Nepal observes 2570th Buddha Jayanti today. Several prayers for peace held in Buddha's birthplace, Lumbini. Ubhauli festival observed across Nepal. Kirat community marks key agrarian festival with Sakela dance and land worship. Nepal joins global observance of International Workers' Day. Government launches 5-year occupational safety and health program. U.S. calls for Lebanon-Israel talks as cross-border violence escalates. White House and Congress dispute over authority to continue strikes in Iran. Nepal edges the UAE in a tense finish at Kirtipur in ICC Men's Cricket League 2 clash. Wins by 6 runs via DLS method. Hello there, I'm Diksha Awasthi. You're watching NTV World News Hour. We are coming to you live from Kathmandu at 2200 hours Nepal time. Now the news in details. Kathmandu authorities have launched a major demolition drive along the Bagmati river banks, targeting 686 informal structures, 486 in Balkhu and 200 in Bansighat, using bulldozers in a coordinated operation involving local and federal agencies. Officials say the clearance campaign is aimed at reducing flood risk ahead of the monsoon season, with riverbank settlements identified as high-risk zones. The drive is set to expand to upstream areas, including Shankamul, in subsequent phases, while 50 displaced families have already registered for resettlement support at Dasrat Stadium, where authorities are collecting data for temporary relocation and rehabilitation arrangements. Nepal today observed the 2570th Buddha Jayanti, marking the birth, enlightenment and Mahaparinirvana of Lord Siddhartha Gautama, all of which, according to Buddhist tradition, occurred on the full moon day of Baishak, as per Eastern lunar calendar. Major Buddhist heritage sites, including Lumbini, the birthplace of Buddha, as well as Swayambhu and Bodha in Kathmandu Valley, came alive with monks and lamas performing traditional rituals, chanting and special pujas. Born as a prince in Lumbini to King Suddhodana and Queen Mayadevi Gautama, renounced royal life at the age of 29 before attaining enlightenment and becoming a global symbol of peace, whose teachings continue to inspire millions worldwide. Today, Nepal's Kirat community observed Udauli Parva, one of its most important seasonal festivals, with traditional Sakela dance, communal rituals and prayers to the earth deity Bhumisthan for good harvest and prosperity. Celebrated on the full moon day of Baishak, the festival is rooted in the Kirat religious text Mundhum and marks the beginning of the farming season, with major observances held across Koshi province and the Kathmandu Valley. This year, Udauli coincides with Buddha Jayanti, marking today a doubly significant occasion for communities across Nepal. Nepal and the world today marked the 137th International Workers' Day, with Labour Minister Ramji Yadav announcing a series of reforms, including a 5-year national occupational safety and health program aimed at ensuring safe and healthy workplaces for all workers. In a significant measure for Nepal's large migrant worker population, the minister introduced weekly Facebook Live sessions through Labour attaches at Nepali embassies abroad to address migrant grievances in real time. Workers enrolled in the contribution-based Social Security Fund will additionally be eligible for housing loans at 6% interest, with access to loans of up to 15 million rupees under existing rules. Israeli strikes in southern Lebanon have killed at least 24 people, according to Lebanese health ministry, marking a serious escalation despite a ceasefire that had been announced on April 16 following talks in Washington. Hezbollah responded with retaliatory drone attacks targeting Israeli tanks in Ben Jabal and a gathering of soldiers, while the Israel Defense Forces reported 1 soldier killed and 12 others wounded in separate drone strikes near the border. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun accused Israel of violating the truce through continued strikes on civilian infrastructure, while Israel maintains its actions are responses to Hezbollah's own breaches, with the United States Embassy in Beirut now calling for direct talks between Lebanese and Israeli leaders. Nepal registered a 6-run victory over the United Arab Emirates via the Duckworth-Lewis-Stern method in a crucial ICC Men's Cricket World Cup League 2 fixture at the Tribhuvan University International Cricket Ground in Kirtipur, Kathmandu. Batting first, Nepal posted 289 for 7 in 50 overs, with Dipendra Singh Airi anchoring the innings with a brilliant century, 100 off 94 balls, including 13 fours and 1 6, his second ODI 100 before being run out. In reply, the UAE were restricted to 248 for 8 in 38 overs while chasing a revised DLS target of 255, falling agonizingly short despite a late push as Nepal's bowlers held their nerve to seal the win and strengthen their position in the league standings. We will delve deeper into this in our segment Issue of the Day later in the bulletin. As Nepal celebrates Buddha Jayanti, Ubhauli and Khatu dance, age-old traditions are alive in today's world. Buddha Jayanti highlights Nepal's enduring message of peace inspired by Gautama Buddha, while the Ubhauli festival brings vibrant Kirat traditions to life across the country. In Kathmandu and beyond, communities celebrate identity through rituals, dance and nature worship. More on this in our Issue of the Day segment after this short break. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World News Hour. Now on to Issue of the Day. Buddha Jayanti is becoming more than a religious commemoration as it reaffirms Nepal's enduring connection to the message of peace and its aspiration to contribute to harmony in the wider world rooted in the teachings of the Buddha. It is also seen as a reminder of the shared values of compassion and coexistence that continue to resonate across generations. Siksha Bhattrai takes a look.
On the full moon day of Nepali month of Baishakh, the sacred rhythms of chants, incense and prayer flags once again marks Buddha Jayanti, this year observed as the 2570th birth anniversary of Siddhartha Gautam, the founder of Buddhism and a global symbol of peace and non-violence. Across Nepal and Buddhist communities worldwide, devotees gather to honor the life and teachings of a prince who renounced royal privilege in search of truth. Born in the serene gardens of Lumbini in Nepal to King Suddhodhan and Queen Maya Devi, Siddhartha Gautam later attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree and became the Buddha, the awakened one. Lumbini, recognized as the birthplace of Lord Buddha, continues to stand as a powerful global symbol of peace, compassion, and spiritual awakening. The site draws pilgrims from around the world, reinforcing Nepal's identity as the land of peace in Buddhist tradition. Buddha Jayanti holds deep spiritual significance, as it is believed that Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and Mahaparinirvana all occurred on the same full moon of Vaishak, making Buddha Jayanti one of the most revered occasions in the Buddhist calendar. The teachings of Buddha, centered on nonviolence, compassion, and coexistence, continue to resonate strongly in Nepal's identity and worldview. Reflecting this philosophy, Nepal's foreign policy is also guided by the principles of peace, mutual respect, and peaceful coexistence, often seen as an extension of the values rooted in the Buddha's message. As lamps are lit and prayers echo through sacred courtyards, Buddha Jayanti becomes more than just a remembrance of the past. It is a reaffirmation of Nepal's enduring connection to peace and its aspiration to contribute to harmony in the wider world.
The Ubhauli festival, celebrated annually by the Kirat Rai community on the full moon day of Vaishak, known as Vaishak Sukla Purnima as per the Eastern lunar calendar, is being observed across Nepal today with traditional nature worship. Ubhauli, which literally means going up, marks the seasonal migration of Kirat communities toward the hills as summer arrives. And on this day, people pray to Mother Nature for healthy crops and protection from natural calamities. In the Kathmandu Valley, devotees gathered at the sacred Sakela Sthan in Hatiban, Lalitpur, to perform rituals and the traditional Sakela dance, a vibrant performance that mimics farming activities such as planting, harvesting, and weaving, as well as the movements of birds and animals. The festival was celebrated in 24 locations in Sunsari district alone and is marked with great enthusiasm across eastern districts, including Khotang, Bhojpur, Dhankuda, Solukhumbu, Ilam, Morang, and Chapa. Ubhauli is not only a Nepal-wide celebration. The festival is observed by Rai communities living in countries such as India, the United Kingdom, and the United States, Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, South Korea, and Qatar, making it a globally resonant expression of Kirat indigenous culture. Just a short climb from the city's bustle, the ridges of Hatiban have turned vibrant with the celebration of the Kirat community's Sakela Ubhauli. While there was once a concern that these ancient traditions might fade with urbanization, recent celebrations tell a different story. The younger generation is reclaiming the Sakela Sili with a fresh energy, proving that the rich Kirat culture is being carried forward with more strength than ever. Sarah Sapsanama Rai reports.
A little above the bustle of the city, the quiet ridges of Hatiban in Nepal's federal capital have transformed into a festive explosion. The steady, hypnotic beat of dhol and the sharp chime of jhanta echoed the area, signaling the arrival of one of Kirat community's most sacred times.
Sakela or Shandar is mainly has to do with the nature worship and keeping it alive and survive with the nature, in harmony with nature. That's the main sense of Sakela.
This is Kirat Manghim, a temple that serves as a stone and wood anchor for the community. 4 distinct doors, each one a tribute to the deep-rooted unity of the Limbu, Rai, Yakha and Sunuwar. Today, these doors stand wide to welcome the season of Sakela Ubhauli.
उधौली र उभौली दुईटा गरिन्छ अहिले चाहिँ चराहरू लेखतिर जाने अवस्थामा छ अनि गाउँघरमा अन्नबाली रोपेको अवस्था छ अन्नबालीलाई पनि अब यो वर्षमा हाम्रो केही पनि रोग व्याध नलागोस् भव्य सभ्य साथ हामी पनि बाँचौं रमाउँ अनि अन्न पात बाली पनि राम्रोसँग फलोस्.
At the center of this gratitude is the Sakela dance. Every gesture in this mimetic language, known as the Sili, is a mirror held up to the natural world. While these stories are ancient, the faces in the circle today are strikingly young. For decades, there was a quiet fear that these traditions might become fragile as the community became more urbanized. But today, that narrative is being rewritten.
These youngsters are performing what we call the connotations of what nature does. They're doing bird movements, they're talking about harvesting, we're taking blessings, seeking from our ancestors. And I love the fact that the youngsters are now carrying this forward.
From youngsters mastering intricate footwork to teenagers proudly pairing traditional ornaments with modern styles, the younger generation is reclaiming their roots with a fierce new energy.
All the people's young generations are connected. It is very powerfully being connected. Not only in this doing festival, just wearing the ornaments, and not only in that sense, but also in the sense of their pride and also connecting to their spiritual.
The energy in places like Hatiban and Nokiport is only the beginning. Much like the traditions in the eastern hilly regions of Nepal, the spirit of Sakela flows down into the heart of the city. The Kirat community is only starting to come together to mark Ubholi.
Well, Sakela fundamentally has been an occasion to honor the nature and also ancestors. But today, it's also becoming a story of revival. For many younger participants in this dance, it's not just about festival, it's about finding their roots and a sense of belonging. They're doing it in their own ways and plan to solidify the culture and hand it over to the newer generation. With Rashila Srestha and Ishwar Mahajan on camera, Sarah Saksanama for NTV World.
The centuries-old Ghatu dance, an indigenous cultural tradition of the Gurung community, native to the Lamjung district of central Nepal, has commenced today in celebration of Baishak Purnima, the full moon day of the Nepali month of Baishak, which this year also coincides with Buddha Jayanti. The Ghatu dance follows a ritual calendar deeply rooted in Gurung tradition, beginning each year on Basanta Panchami, a spring festival falling in the Nepali month of Magh, roughly January or February, and formally concluding on the Panchami following Baishak Purnima. According to custom, today's Baishak Purnima marks not just the end of one cycle, but simultaneously the ceremonial beginning of the next, making it the most significant day in the Ghatu calendar. The Gurung people are one of the Nepal's prominent indigenous Himalayan communities, known for their rich oral traditions, shamanic practices, and vibrant performing arts, with the Ghatu dance considered one of their most sacred and distinctive cultural expressions. Keeping in step with previous years, communities in Lamjung have gathered with enthusiasm to perform and witness the tradition, reflecting a broader national effort to preserve and celebrate Nepal's extraordinary diversity of indigenous cultures. In this context, we ask the people how hopeful you are that younger generation are taking forward this tradition. Let's have a look at what they have to say in today's public segment.
सबैजना हाम्रो जेनेरेसनको मान्छेहरू सबैजना यसरी पार्ट गरेको देख्दाखेरि अनि आफू पनि यसरी पार्ट भएर आउँदाखेरि चाहिँ एकदम खुसी लागेछ जस हाम्रो पछि गएर पनि सबैजना हुन्छौँ नै होला भन्ने लागिरहेछ अहिले यसो हेर्दाखेरि चाहिँ
Yeah, I love to do that because of course it's my tradition and I'll keep it going, pass it down to the juniors of course.
पहिला पहिला युवाहरूले खासै त्यस्तो खासै चासो लिँदैन थियो हैन तर अहिले चाहिँ युवा पुस्ताहरूले पनि यो चाहिँ हाम्रो चाड रहेछ भनेर उनीहरु एकदम भित्री बातदेखि नै उनीहरु लागि परेर हेर्नु यहाँ सानो सानो नानीहरु यहाँ हेर्नु त
पहिला पहिला भन्दा चाहिँ अहिलेको नयाँ जेनेरेसनहरुले चाहिँ आफ्नो सांस्कृतिक आफ्नो पहिचान प्रति चाहिँ अलिकति एकदम उत्साहित भएर चाहिँ सबैले चाहिँ मनाएको देखिन्छ।
पहिलाको जति अलिक भएको छैन बट स्लोली रिकभर हुँदैछ, कन्टिन्यू गर्दैछौँ हामीले। पहिलाको भन्दा अलिक बेटर गरौँ भनेर कोसिस गरिरहेछौँ।
I think it's very important to carry and pass on the culture to the younger generation so that it does not go extinct and our culture can live on forever through our younger generations so they can enjoy it as much as we are enjoying right now.
संस्कृति भनेको एउटा चिनारी हो, हामीले यसलाई चाहिँ बचाउनु, प्रवर्धन गर्नु, संरक्षण गर्नु एकदमै जरुरी छ किनभने हामीले आफ्नै संस्कार संस्कृतिले गर्दा नि नेपाल चाहिँ विश्व सामु चिनिनु सफल भएको छ र संस्कार संस्कृति चाहिँ हाम्रो सम्पत्ति हो भन्ने म बुझ्दछु।
हाम्रो जुन साकेला उधौली पर्व, उधौली र उभौली पर्व चाहिँ अहिलेको यङ जेनेरेसनले पोजिटिभ वेमा र जुन तरिकाले यङ जेनेरेसन स्पेसली यङ जेनेरेसनको सहभागिता देखिन्छ यसलाई चाहिँ हामीले पोजिटिभ वेमा लिन सक्छौँ।
यो युवा पुस्ताले चाहिँ यसरी चाहिँ यो संस्कृतिमा एउटा आफ्नो सक्रियता देखाउनु भनेको चाहिँ आजको अब 50 देखि 60 वर्षसम्म चाहिँ यही पुस्ताले यो संस्कृति बचाउने निश्चित देखिन्छ।
It is really interesting. It's like a mystery and I really like this kind of culture and I'm really happy to be in this culture. Plus because this is interesting because we have dance, songs and we even have more other festivals.
That wraps up our Issue of the Day segment. On to the next segment now. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World News Hour. I'm Diksha Westi. Now on to cover story. As Nepal marks International Labour Day, foreign employment continues to stand out as both an opportunity and a compulsion for thousands of workers amid limited jobs at home. While it offers livelihoods, the lack of strong safeguards has left many Nepalese migrant workers vulnerable to exploitation, fraud and hardship abroad. Siksha Bhattrai with Pawan Barsha Shah takes a look.
In recent times, more than 2,000 Nepali youths have been leaving daily through Tribhuvan International Airport in search of employment. With limited domestic opportunities, youths are compelled to go abroad. However, many travel through informal channels, relying on personal contacts and middlemen. This has led to cases of fraud, exploitation, and workers being stranded. Lack of awareness about safe foreign employment among government agencies, stakeholders, manpower companies, and the workers themselves has further increased these risks. Experts say that in countries where the government's presence is weak, diaspora organizations like the Non-Resident Nepali Association should be made more responsible.
यदि वर्तमान युद्धलाई अलिकति लामो गइदियो भने त्यो ठाउँबाट त रेमिटेन्स झ्याप्पै घट्ने हुन सक्छ। किनभने हाम्रो अहिले तत्कालै सरकारले गर्नुपर्ने काम के हो भने नि त्यो ठाउँबाट लेबर डाइभर्सिफिकेसन गर्ने खालको क्रियाकलापहरू हामीले सञ्चालन गर्नुपर्ने हुन सक्छ। मेरो लागि यदि यहाँहरूले भन्नुहुन्छ भने हाम्रो नेपालीहरूलाई त्यहाँका सुरक्षित र व्यवस्थित आवासन हुनु पर्यो भने एक हामीले हाम्रो आईटी सिस्टम्सहरूलाई एकदमै प्रभावकारी रूपमा परिचालन गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ। दोस्रो चाहिँ हाम्रो डायस्पोराहरूलाई ठुलो रूपमा परिचालन पनि गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ, उनीहरूले ट्रस्ट पनि गर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ। तेस्रो चाहिँ यहाँ जाने बेला व्यक्तिहरू जानभन्दा अगाडि चाहिँ उनीहरूलाई यो प्री डिपार्चर ओरिएन्टेसन ट्रेनिङ र पोस्ट डिपार्चर पछाडिका विभिन्न किसिमका क्रियाकलापहरूमा या सचेतनामूलक क्रियाकलापहरूमा उहाँहरूलाई संलग्न गराउनुपर्ने हुन्छ।
Young people say going abroad for work is not a choice but a compulsion.
अब नेपालमा भन्ने जस्तो रोजगार छैन नि त। अब त्यो 10-12 हजारले रुम भाडा नै यति धेरै महँगो हुन्छ, आफ्नो फ्यामिली पाल्नु पर्यो, सकिदैन नि त। त्यही भएर नै परदेश रोजिनु गर्ने कारण नै यही हो के।
नराम्रो त भइहाल्छ, अवश्यले पनि नराम्रो त भइहाल्छ हैन, आफ्नो कन्ट्री छोडेर जानको लागि। त्यही पनि कस्तो हुँदो रहेछ नि, आफ्नो बच्चाको लागि बेटर फ्युचर केही हुन्छ कि भनेर सपोर्टको लागि जान खोजेको। यहाँबाट खासै सपोर्ट गर्न नसक्ने भनेको अब आउने बच्चाहरूको चाहिँ कस्तो छ भने दिमागमा कस्तो हुँदो रहेछ भने जहिले पनि उनीहरूले विदेशै जान्छु मात्र भन्ने कि त्यही भएर मलाई कस्तो लाग्यो भने अब उनीहरूको लागि भए पनि ब्याक सपोर्टको लागि पनि जान खोजेको म अहिले
यतिकै सिप नसिकिकन हामी विदेश गयो भनेदेखि गाह्रो हुन्छ हैन अब कतिपय मान्छेहरू विदेशमा गएर यतिकै अब काम केही जानेको हुँदैन भाषाहरू आएको हुँदैन हैन अनि दुःख पाइरहेको छ नि त अब सकेसम्म त हामी विदेश जान नपरोस् भन्ने हो अब विदेश जानै परेपछि केही सिकेर जाउँ
Nepali workers have reached 171 countries for jobs, but Nepal has labor agreements with only 12 countries. Since 1995, around 3.2 million Nepalis have been working abroad. In the current fiscal year, more than 600,000 labor permits have been issued by mid-March, while 887,000 permits were issued in the previous fiscal year. The trend underscores a broader global reality that labor migration remains a lifeline for many economies, but without stronger protections, migrant workers continue to face heightened risks.
May Day is being celebrated worldwide with rallies calling for higher wages, better working conditions, and peace as workers face rising living costs and economic pressures linked to global energy price shocks. Demonstrations are taking place across major cities in Asia, Europe, and the United States, with unions highlighting inflation, inequality, and job insecurity. In South Korea, large crowds gathered at capital Seoul's Gwanghwamun Square under the banner of the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, with participants demanding stronger labor rights, recognition and non-regular workers, and expanded collective bargaining protections. Organizers said about 10,000 people attended the rally, where protesters also called for improved conditions for platform and special category workers. In Sri Lanka, International Workers' Day was marked by 21 widespread rallies and political events across the country, led by the National People's Power Alliance, headed by President Anura Kumara Disanayak. The movement held multiple rallies in major cities, focusing on workers' rights, social justice, and strengthening public sovereignty. Senior government and party leaders, including the President, Prime Minister, and key ministers, participated in events across different regions. That was our cover story. Now we move on to other updates. Nepal's President Ramchandra Paudel today issued the Money Laundering Prevention Third Amendment Ordinance 2083, the latest in a series of executive orders being promulgated in rapid succession by the President's office. The government has forwarded a total of 8 different ordinances to the President's office, with ordinances related to cooperatives and public procurement having already been issued yesterday. Further ordinances are currently under review, signaling that the flurry of executive legislative activity is not yet complete. Notably, President Paudel has also been consulting legal experts on some of the more sensitive proposed ordinances, including one related to Constitutional Council, a powerful constitutional body that recommends appointments to key state positions such as the Chief Justice, heads of constitutional commissions, and ambassadors. The wave of ordinances, which carry the force of law when Parliament is not in session, has drawn significant political attention, with observers watching closely to see how many and which legislative changes the President ultimately approves. U.S. Special Envoy for South and Central Asia, Sergio Gore, met Nepal's Finance Minister Sonim Wagle and later held a courtesy meeting with Foreign Minister Shishir Khanal in Kathmandu during his visit to Nepal. The discussions focused on strengthening Nepal-U.S. relations, with emphasis on expanding economic cooperation, trade and investment ties with the United States. According to officials, the envoy also engaged in broader talks on development partnership as part of his ongoing meetings with senior government leaders in Kathmandu. The Thawang village of Rolpa district in western Nepal, police have recovered the bodies of 20 people killed in a jeep accident after the vehicle plunged around 800 meters down a steep cliff. Nepal police and armed police force personnel conducted an overnight rescue operation in difficult terrain, retrieving the bodies using ropes and stretchers. Some victims were carried manually while others were pulled up from the gorge. Only one person survived the accident. Authorities said the bodies are being sent for post-mortem examinations before being handed over to their respective districts. Nepal's Supreme Court has ruled that confiscating documents such as driver's licenses, blue books and vehicle keys, as well as taking control of vehicles themselves on the basis of traffic violations is illegal, setting the stage for a significant shift in how traffic laws are enforced across the country. A joint bench of Justices Abdul Aziz Musalman and Shrikant Paurel delivered the ruling, stating that such confiscations are contrary to the Vehicle and Transport Management Act 2049 BS, Nepal's primary legislation governing road transport, and the full text of the judgment, originally delivered on Paush 22, has only recently been made public. The case was brought by Vivek Chaudhary, a student of Nepal Law Campus, who filed a writ petition after traffic police in Bawarmal, Kathmandu, fined him for jumping a red light and held his driver's license for 24 hours before returning it. The court, after consulting all relevant authorities, concluded that while fining drivers for traffic violations and lawful physically seizing their documents or keys goes beyond what the law permits, a practice that had long been routine for traffic enforcement unites nationwide. With this landmark ruling now in effect, both drivers and traffic personnel are expected to adapt to a new enforcement model based solely on the on-the-spot fines, without the added pressure of document or vehicle confiscation. The government of Nepal has released new guidelines on determining minimum support price, that is MSP, and minimum purchase price for agricultural crops 2082 BS. According to the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, the new framework will allow farmers to know the MSP of major crops such as paddy, maize, wheat, and millet, even before sowing, helping them plan production in advance. For crops like sugarcane, the government will conduct field surveys and data analysis before finalizing prices, while wheat prices will be set based on technical recommendations and review reports. Agriculture Minister Geeta Chaudhary said the guidelines are expected to reduce market risks for farmers, encourage better crop selection, and boost investment and productivity in the agriculture sector. More international news coming up, but before that, let's have a recap headlines. Nepal government continues removal of encroached land along riverbanks in capital. Public supports government action. Nepal observes 2570th Buddha Jayanti today. Special prayers for peace held in Buddha's birthplace, Lumbini. Ubauli festival observed across Nepal. Kirat community marks key agrarian festival with Sakela dance and land worship. Nepal joins global observance of International Workers' Day. Government launches 5-year occupational safety and health program. U.S. calls for Lebanon-Israel talks as cross-border violence escalates. White House and Congress dispute over authority to continue strikes in Iran. And Nepal edges the UAE in tense finish at Kirtipur in ICC Men's Cricket League 2 clash, wins by 6 runs via DLS method. Detained former Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been moved to house arrest, according to state media, after more than 3 years in military detention following the 2021 Myanmar coup. A statement from junta chief Min Aung Hlaing said her remaining sentence had been commuted to the served at a designated residence, though no location for time frame was disclosed. The 80-year-old Nobel laureate had been held in what is believed to be a prison in the capital, Naypyidaw, since being ousted from power. While the move appears to signal a rare concession by the military authorities, supporters and analysts say it is unlikely to significantly ease restrictions on her contact with the public. Her former lakeside residence in Yangon, where she previously spent years under house arrest, showed no signs of increased activity or preparations for her return. Sources indicate she may instead be held within a secured compound in Naypyidaw, limiting access and visibility. Critics, including members of her dissolved National League for Democracy, have dismissed the move by Min Aung Hlaing as a potential attempt by the junta to improve its international image without offering meaningful political concessions. Iran's Foreign Minister Sayed Abbas Araghchi has accused the United States of misleading the public over the economic cost of its military involvement in the conflict launched in February under Donald Trump alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In a post on X, Araghchi claimed the war has already cost Washington around $100 billion, which he said is 4 times higher than official figures reported by the Pentagon. He also argued that indirect costs for U.S. taxpayers are significantly higher, estimating the financial burden at roughly $500 per month per household, with expenses continuing to rise. Araghchi criticized U.S. support for Israel, saying it comes at the expense of American interest. Dozens of activists from a Gaza-bound aid flotilla intercepted by Israeli forces in international waters off Crete disembarked on Friday under escort by Greek coast guards, according to reports. According to around 175 activists, mostly European nationals, were transported by bus to the port of Atherino-Lakos after being removed from more than 20 boats, although organizers said the flotilla included 211 participants. The flotilla, comprising more than 50 vessels, had departed in recent weeks from cities including Marseille, Barcelona and Syracuse, aimed to deliver humanitarian aid and challenge Israel's blockade of Gaza Strip. Israel, which has controlled access to Gaza since 2007, said the flotilla was a provocation to divert attention from Hamas's refusal to disarm, while the United Nations and aid groups have warned that restrictions on supplies have worsened shortages in the territory. Several European governments called for the release of detained activists, describing the interception as a potential breach of international law. The United States, however, backed Israel's actions, calling the flotilla a stunt, and urged allies to deny support to vessels involved in the flotilla. May 1 marks the 60-day deadline under the War Powers Act for U.S. military operations against Iran, intensifying a constitutional dispute between the White House and Congress over war powers. This War Powers Act codifies that presidents must cease military action after 60 days or receive congressional authorization to legally continue. The clock began after Donald Trump notified lawmakers of strikes launched on February 28 alongside Israel and requires congressional authorization or a drawdown of hostilities. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told lawmakers on Thursday the government believes the 60-day clock pauses or stops during a halt in fighting, a claim Democrats reject as unsupported by the law. With tens of thousands of U.S. troops deployed in the Middle East and mounting economic and political costs at home, the dispute presents a high-stakes test of Congress's authority over war powers, more than 50 years after the law was passed in the wake of the Vietnam War. The Colombian Navy has confirmed a joint maritime operation with the Royal Netherlands Navy in Caribbean waters that led to seizure of around 4 tons of cocaine and marijuana. Authorities said the operation marked the first large-scale collaboration of its kind between the two navies. 12 individuals were arrested during the operation, including nationals from Colombia, the Dominican Republic and Venezuela. Authorities state the seizure impacted transnational criminal and terrorist organization finances by approximately $150 million, preventing the purchase of weapons, explosives and drones intended for use against civilians and security forces. Turkey's COP31 President-designate Murat Kurum has urged the next UN climate summit to prioritize results and implementation over new pledges as global efforts to shift away from fossil fuels stall. Speaking at the International Energy Agency in Paris, he said a fossil fuel phase-out is not realistic, calling instead for progress on a voluntary transition roadmap launched at COP30. The COP31 summit in Antalya in November 2026 will also focus on climate finance amid rising geopolitical tensions and growing calls to accelerate renewable energy deployment.
Eğer krizleri bahane göstermeye kalkarsak burada açıkçası hiçbir ilerleme kaydedemeyiz. Dünya her zaman bir kriz yaşadı, yaşıyor, yaşayacak gözüküyor. Keşke yaşamasa. Krizleri bir tarafa koyduğumuzda bizim COP31'de netice almamız lazım, sonuç almamız lazım. Çünkü artık attığımız adımlar maalesef bu kötü gidişatı durdurabilecek adımlar değil. Yani bizim eylemimizde açıkçası ilerleme kaydetmek üzere olacak ve burada iklim finansmanı çok önemli. Bu konuda eşit hakkaniyet çerçevesinde yaklaşacağız ve iklim finansmanına erişimi hızlandıracak mekanizmaları hayata geçireceğiz.
Business news coming up next. For now, a short breather.
China has announced it will remove tariffs on imports from all African countries starting Friday, except for Eswatini. The policy expands an existing duty-free scheme for least developed African nations to cover 53 countries and will remain in effect until April 2028. Beijing described the move as the first unilateral zero-tariff arrangement by a major global economy for Africa, framing it as a support for trade and development. However, it is said tariffs are not the main barrier to African exports, noting that Africa continues to run a large and widening trade deficit with China. Last year, the gap rose 65% to around $102 billion, with African exports largely concentrated in raw materials such as oil and minerals. Currently, China's main trading partners in the region include Angola, driven primarily by oil, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Africa. Bangladesh has signed a $3.7 billion deal with Boeing to acquire 14 aircraft for its national carrier Biman Bangladesh Airlines, marking the airline's largest ever fleet expansion. The agreement, finalized at a formal ceremony in Dhaka, includes 8 787-10 Dreamliners, 2 787-9 Dreamliners, and 4 737-8 MAX jets to be delivered over the next decade. Officials said the 787-10 aircraft will primarily serve Middle Eastern routes, while the 787-9s will operate long-haul flights to Europe and North America. The deal was also linked to a broader tariff agreement with the United States, according to the state media. Biman currently operates a fleet of around 19 aircraft and serves 22 international destinations, including its longest route from Dhaka to Toronto via Istanbul.
Now on to a sports update. The Nepal Women's Wrestling Foundation has included the wrestling match organized at Tilicho Lake in Manang in the World Book of Records, London. The wrestling match organized at Tilicho, the highest altitude lake located at an altitude of 4,919 meters, has been included in the World Book of Records. In the wrestling match held in Tilicho on November 26, Nepal's Bhagwati Khadka and Asmita Sunar competed against American wrestler Camille Legon. Bhagwati and Asmita were victorious in it. Former Deputy Speaker Indira Rana presented certificates to Bhagwati and Asmita at the event. US President Donald Trump has indicated he has no objection to Iran participating in the FIFA World Cup 2026, following confirmation by FIFA President Gianni Infantino that the team will play matches in the United States. The statement comes despite heightened geopolitical tensions linked to conflict involving the US and Israel earlier this year. Infantino told the 76th FIFA Congress in Vancouver that Iran would take part as scheduled, including games on US soil, effectively ruling out proposals to relocate fixtures to Mexico. Iran is set to be based in Tucson, Arizona during the tournament and will compete in Group G alongside New Zealand, Belgium and Egypt. The team is scheduled to open its campaign against New Zealand in Los Angeles on June 15. And now the weather updates, first from across Nepal and then the world. And before we wrap up, here's a reminder of our top stories. Nepal government continues removal of encroached land along river banks in the capital. Public supports government action. Nepal observes 2570th Buddha Jayanti today. Special prayers for peace held in Buddha's birthplace, Lumbini. Uboli festival observed across Nepal. Kirat community marks key agrarian festival with Shakela dance and land worship. Nepal joins global observance of International Workers' Day. Government launches 5-year occupational safety and health program. U.S. calls for Lebanon-Israel talks as cross-border violence escalates. White House and Congress dispute over authority to continue strikes in Iran. Nepal edges the UAE in tense finish at Kirtipur ICC Men's Cricket League. 2 clash wins by 6 runs via DLS method. That's it for this edition of NTV World News Hour. Do join us through our social sites and get the latest updates from our official website, nepaltelevision.com. This is it for today. Have a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you.